What I really wished is that somebody could have told younger me, hey, you've really got something. You're only 19, you've got a stage presence. You just did 25 minutes. Keep going. Because at that point in time, I listened to whatever voice in us that said, you're not funny. I wish we all had more champions who could speak past our own limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
Say, I see it in you. I see the desire plus raw talent. Of course it has to be developed. A lot of those jokes absolutely sucked.
Right.
But a couple of them were good. And that's the only thing that matters.
And that's enough. That's enough to get you started, right? Especially if you have someone on the outside that's like, I see you, I believe in you, keep going. You got something.
We're all universally suited to live this way in regards to purpose. I asked myself the question.
Hey, I'm Scott Brandon Hoffman, aka Brandon AF, and this is the Mostly Conscious Late Night Show. And I have a very special human, a dear friend of mine in the green room that he just touches my life in so many different ways, and I can't wait to introduce you to him. He's one of my favorite people on the planet. For reals. Be right back after this. Almost live from the internet, it's the Conscious Late Night Show with your host, Brandon AF, with tonight's special guest, Patrick Combs. Brandon AF. He smiled. I did my job. He smiled in the green room. That's how we get people warmed up on this show. And they laugh and they have a good time. This dude, this soul, this spirit, he has touched my heart in so many ways that he probably doesn't even know. He's one of the people that has inspired me and empowered me and lifted me and called me forward in so many different ways. And he lives in excellence. He's super grounded in his spirit. He's a phenomenal speaker. He's like a master storyteller. He's had multiple incarnations of different projects of his life as a comedic actor, as an epic speaker. I think, 1,500 rooms or something like that at this point. He champions people to be in their bliss. He lives it. He talks it. He's just badass. So let's bring him in right now. And there he is.
Hey, that was awesome.
There he is in the house. In the house. What's up, brother?
That was awesome. Scott AF.
Yeah, I'm as A-fuck as whatever, man. I always think, people go, what is the AF? And like, you automatically think it means the F word. It can mean always free. It can mean always flying. It could be ascending frequently. It could be whatever you want it to be. It's like, it doesn't have to be so.
Those were good.
It's like, get your mind out of the gutter, people.
In high school, I ran cross country and track, and on the back of my shoes, it said AMF.
AMF, okay.
AMF, yeah.
Nice.
Adios.
Ah.
MF.
What, is that like a subdivision of Adidas? Because we can get them to sponsor us.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you here. I haven't seen you in a while, and I'm really excited to share you with the world because I just love you, man. I just love you.
I love you too, and I'm already having the best time I've ever had on any podcast.
Oh, that's good to know.
Because it's not a podcast. This is a freaking show.
It's an entertainment show, man, and it's
amazing.
Yeah.
What an amazing thing you got here.
I appreciate that.
So we can spend some time.
Yeah, we're gonna spend some time, and as long as we need to go, I'm just ready to rock and drop deep and go on the ride, go on the journey, man. So I want to know. First thing I want to know is because I feel like this is having a conversation. Even though I know you, there's so much I don't know about you, and I want to like dive into all these nooks and crannies that I don't know about. One of them is your upbringing, because I know you had a interesting upbringing, if I remember correctly, some of that, and you came from very humble beginnings, and the person you are now and who you are as a human in this world, and how you show up and shine your light and just empower people and entertain people and all the things you do. I'd love to hear like those beginnings of that little Patrick, that little dude who came in soul fresh out of the other side, that came here to play.
I was born a poor Mexican child. I am Mexican American.
Mm-hmm.
I was raised just by my mother, and she is 100% Mexican. So I am half Mexican. But being raised just by her, I just primarily identify as Mexican. And my mom raised my brother and I in Bend, Oregon. When I was there, it was 17,000 people max. So I grew up in a small town. And my mother had achieved the highest sort of career standing of anybody in our family tree. God bless her soul.
Hmm.
Because through her own boldness, geez, my mother, she was just an incredible figure. But through her own boldness, she had left behind everything, all her family, and all the racism and discrimination and abuse, drug abuse and alcohol abuse and physical abuse of her childhood and lack of education. And her and my father moved to Bend, Oregon on my father's doing, but then he divorced her immediately. So she had two kids, 2 and 1. I was
Hmm.
1, my brother was 2 when he left. And so imagine being a Mexican American in a foreign land called Oregon, right?
Oregon.
Trying to raise 2 boys on $8 an hour with an ex-husband that would continually, over and over, stiff her for this child support. So I would constantly
Wow.
watch her cry over that, constantly
Mm.
watch her
What was that? What
anguish.
was that like for you? Like, how did that affect you? Like, so early on in your life, to see your mother being alone without a father, and having your mother be like such a badass, trying to go out in the world and take care of her family, but also seeing, that she was crying and having to go through that struggle all by herself.
Well, it was awful. It was really awful. I don't think there's any child that wants to watch his mom cry a lot.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really understand the impact it had on me until much later in my life and a lot of therapy, where I began to realize that it was a pretty formative experience, for me to just keep watching my mom have these very difficult emotional struggles, largely related to the dissolution of her marriage, and I think a pretty kind of unkind
Mm.
ex-husband.
And
Yeah.
what was going on inside you, as far as like what you were you into anything that you are now? Or did you have that natural calling even in the midst of that environment? Or was it more about trying to take care of your mom and be there and make her smile? Like, what were you going through?
Um, a lot of chores.
A lot of chores.
My mom was brilliant. She was self-described pretty accurately as Winnie the Pooh. She'd be like, "I'm stuffed with fluff." But boy, this woman was just brilliant in
Mm.
her ability to raise kids, because one of the things she was really smart about is she knew, I got to give these kids chores. Like, I got to work them pretty hard. And so a lot of my childhood was just fulfilling the to-do list that she'd leave every morning. This woman worked night shift. And so she somebody reminded me just the other day that my brother and I used to be responsible for taking her uniforms during the day. My brother pulling me in the wagon, and we would just cross town, and my brother would boost me up on the dryer like I was so tiny. But we were missing the era when kids, that were 3 or 4 years old were out doing chores,
Hmm.
doing the laundry at the laundromat.
Oh my God.
So look, I think that's one way of just saying, like, I deeply acknowledge that my mom instilled a really good sort of work ethic in me. I just know, like, oh, you wake up, you do, you hit your
I
list,
was gonna
you get
say,
things
like,
done.
I was gonna say that's exactly because you're so good. Like, you have such an amazing work ethic. And I was
Yes,
like,
thanks to my
geez, you were
mom.
there at 3 years old. Your mom's like kicking your ass. Like, go do
Yeah,
your
I've
stuff, man.
chopped I've chopped a lot of wood. I've moved a lot of wood piles. I've cleaned a lot of sheds.
Wow.
I've my mom famously once my my mom famously once said, "Hey, I'm going to Texas. Would you boys like to go with me to meet your relatives?" And I was just entering high school, and I was like, "Not in a million years, right? I'm gonna just. This means that you'll be gone, and I'll just run free and crazy." And so my mom left, and then the next day I walked out the front door of our trailer house, and there was a giant mountain of dirt, because she had had a dump truck of dirt delivered, and then she called back and she said,
God.
"Oh, listen, since you chose to stay by yourself, before you go out and do anything with your friends, first I want you to spread that dirt out around our trailer house, raise the level of the yard by a foot, that was the first mountain I ever moved in my life. And it was hard AF. It was
Wow.
hard as fuck. It was
That's
hard as
wild. That
fuck.
reminds me of that Will Smith story with his father having him build that brick wall that took like
Yeah,
two
Will
two
got
years or
lucky.
something. He got
Will,
lucky.
you listening? You got lucky. So, yeah, that was so that you kind of get this picture of like my mom, instilling these qualities in me. But going back to the question, I'll just go really quickly here. Um, there was a sign of something in me that would early on that would reveal what I would later love doing in my life. In second grade, there was a talent show, and I'm just still shocked and amazed to know that I decided to enter it and to do stand-up comedy.
Hmm.
And I was the only person I vividly remember that went on that stage solo.
Wait,
Everybody else
are you
had,
saying that you entered a stand up comedy routine in second grade?
yeah, yeah,
I didn't see. I didn't
yeah,
know that. I love this. Okay.
yeah, yeah. You want to know how I remember my lines?
Yeah,
Because
please.
I wasn't writing original jokes. And
Ah,
that's either fortunate or unfortunate in second grade.
what do you got? What do you got?
I found a limerick I liked, and all I remember is the opening lines. I come before you to stand behind you to tell you something I know nothing about. Pretty
Welcome,
perfect. Pretty perfect.
welcome to being an entrepreneur. That's the entrepreneur creator mix hybrid style right there. That serves you well.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And what? So, how many people did you perform in front of?
That must have been, what's a elementary school made of,
Oh God,
So
yeah, it depends.
I remember the gymnasium. I remember Sean Ricketts doing tap dance with probably Michael Majors. Those guys killed it. That was great.
They
Great
are.
ass guys.
I've seen them on America's Got Talent. They're huge.
But and then it reoccurred because I didn't think of myself as a guy that wanted to be a comedian or a performer. I just thought I wanted to do that in a talent show. And then likewise, very similar, and this is shocking to me because I think that the self-awareness can take a while to dawn on you that something's obviously part of your dharma, but you might not even notice that that's where you're automatically being drawn. So in high school, there's a position, at least at Ben High, called Assemblies Commissioner. And that meant that if you were so ridiculous enough as to want to be the high school student that went in front of your peers and was the MC of every assembly, you could run for the elected position. And so I ran for the elected position of Assemblies Commissioner. I narrowly beat Renee Davis, of which she still is cognizant that it was perhaps a 1 or 2 vote margin, but
Ooh.
I did in fact win, and I won on a speech I gave in the gymnasium, which, Scott, to be honest with you, like truly had the other students in an uproar. Like they really thought I was funny.
That's amazing. And how old are you at this point then? You said that was more
I was
towards
a senior in high school,
okay, so it's like what,
and
17,
then I spent
18?
my senior. No, I ran as a junior, right?
Okay.
And then my senior year, I was going on stage every assembly in costumes
My
and
God.
characters that I would make up, and um, I'm positive they were all cringeworthy, but good for me. Good for me.
I love it. So you were just doing it. And
I
you
was
had
wanting
no,
to do
and
it.
I'm assuming you had no plan. You had
No,
no vision. You were just
no,
following that thing that you follow your whole damn life, son, which I
yeah,
love,
yeah.
which
Yeah,
is
because
that,
then when I went to college, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. So I thought, oh, maybe I'll go into advertising.
huh. And did you?
You know what I did is I would sneak. I discovered that there was a comedy course being offered um, in by this guy. I wish I could remember his name because he had worked with the greats like Milton Berle.
Right.
That was his claim to being a comedy coach. And
Yeah,
Neil,
they
I
always have
know
that one
it was
guy, right?
Neil. It's Neil something, right?
Mm,
I'm almost wonder if it's Neil Katz. But
yeah.
anyhow, there was this guy
Yeah.
Neil, and so I snuck off. I snuck. Snuck means I didn't tell a single friend that
Mm,
I was going like every Thursday or something night to take stand-up comedy lessons with this Neil guy. And then, which resulted in me doing a couple performances that year, one in a comedy club on their Monday night, right? When the only people watching were the other comedy students, and then one in the dorms. And Scott, I'm talking too much here, but this just shocks me. In the dorms, there were two guys, and they were running a tremendously, wildly successful comedy variety show in the dorms down in the cantina.
Huh.
Jeff and Jeff, the two funniest human beings to this day, perhaps I've ever seen. They were just hysterical together. I was positive they were both going to Saturday Night Live, but they were running their own little mini version. And then they would post, like, if you want to join the show with some kind of act, go ahead. So I said, oh, well, I do. And so I went up on stage in college at San Francisco State University, and I did 25 minutes on my first try in front of this packed house of about 350.
Incredible.
And then when I got off stage, I concluded I wasn't funny, even though the audience was friendly. And I think it's because the next guy came up on stage and he was fantastic. He was so
really? He killed.
Fantastic. And it turns out that his name was Rob Schneider. And he was just getting started, but he was really funny.
Yeah.
So that came and went, and that was the complete end of my stand-up comedy. And Scott, I didn't know that show was taped and that I had a copy of it until about a year ago.
What?
I found it buried in like my garage.
Oh, I wish I had known. I would have put it in would have had it in the show ready to go.
And I plugged in the video, and all I thought was what I was about to watch would be the most cringy thing I've ever watched of myself. And what I saw was a young guy who had a stage presence that could absolutely have been developed. And what I really wish that more people had in the world, because I didn't have it at the time. This is kind of a conscious point.
Yeah.
What I really wished is that somebody could have told younger me, hey, you've really got something. You're only 19 years old. You've got a stage presence. You just did 25 minutes. Keep going. Because at that point in time, I listened to whatever voice that's in us that said, you're not that funny. So I wish we all had more champions who outside of us could speak past our own limiting beliefs.
Yeah, so important.
And sometimes say, I see it in you. I see it in you. Right? I both see the desire plus some raw talent. Of course it has to be developed. A lot of those jokes absolutely sucked.
Right.
But a couple of them were good. And that's the only thing that matters.
And that's enough. That's enough to get you started, right? Like if you can have one piece of gold, one nugget, and someone, especially if you have someone on the outside that's like, I see you, I believe in you, keep going, you got something. Like I didn't have that at all. And that's why it's like my path was very different than yours. And I find people like you in my life later that like start calling you out and telling you the truth. So, but yeah, it's amazing. And I love that natural flow that you literally, again, it's like, I didn't hear anything other than work from your mom, right? I didn't hear like, you're a brilliant, stand up, go follow that. You're funny, Patrick. I'm not sure if some of that happened. Maybe it did, but I think what's really cool, and this is what I love when I hear these stories, is like just following that spark, just following, this feels right. This feels good. This is what I want. That's it. Like that's really, if we just all did that and we were all supported on that and we all had a mindset around that, what a different freaking world this would be.
Yeah. I think the very best voice for this that you're so brilliantly referencing, I think it's Abraham Hicks, right? Because Abraham Hicks just constantly pounds the message home. Like
follow what feels good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your joy is the compass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll have to talk about the economic and the commerce side of it later, because I know that's something that you're also equally great at that a lot of people don't. But I don't want to go there yet, because I think that's a little bit later as we progress into it. Because right now it's more important to stay on the path of bliss and your soul calling and your heart and all the things. So okay, so you hit that spot. You had someone to say these epic things to you, and then what happened next?
I wished I had someone to say epic things to me.
Oh, did I miss that?
Yeah, I didn't.
You see, that's why it's the mostly conscious show. I'm not conscious. I fucking missed it.
Nah, that doesn't mean you're not
No, I know.
conscious as in
I know.
awake,
I
right?
know.
That's great, brother. No, yeah, I'm saying I wish that somebody could have seen me at 19 trying comedy
Got
and
it.
said, "You keep going there, young man. You've got some raw talent." Because the only opinion I had at that point was my own, and I was comparing myself to Rob Schneider, who was probably 5 years into his comedy career and 1 year away from getting on Saturday Night Live.
Wow.
So, the comparisons we do to ourselves are awful. That's why it's, so anyway, that happened. And I was still really engaged in a head versus heart battle.
Mm.
And so in college, it's pretty front and center. What are you going to do with your life? And so my head was trying to find things like advertising. Oh, advertising is cool. I'm going to do advertising, or maybe technology.
Oh, God, I relate to this.
But my heart was clearly pulling me to performance, because I would sneak away for it. There were two things I snuck for in college. One I told you about. The other was to just watch Carl Sagan do Cosmos. I discovered that in the library at San Francisco State University, when the only way to see shit like that was to go to a library, rent a room for yourself, and watch it on giant cassettes or something.
Cassettes.
And so compelling was what he was doing as an orator and a storyteller that I skipped classes. I skipped a week's worth of whatever class was necessary so I could just sit and what do they call it these days? Binge the whole Cosmos series.
Yeah, binge that Netflix Cosmos series.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So that's the heart, right? I think it's the soul. I think that's the soul saying, wow, this is the greatest thing ever. This is what we want to do with our lives. But the head was saying like, oh yeah, advertising, or maybe marketing, or technology.
And take that for a moment. Unpack the difference between what that feels like in the body, what that feels like energetically, what that feels like in the heart. Because I know that story very, very well. There's a guy who wanted to go to music school and film school and got a finance degree and became a stock trader because that was the thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm curious, like, how you felt that, and like already that early part of your life, you were like, you could tell, like, hey, my head's saying, like, I should go do, I should, right? There's probably a should story in there somewhere. Should all over yourself. Why do we should on ourselves? It's so, so fucking wrong. But yeah, just curious on what that did. And did you end up going into advertising? Is that where you started? And
Yeah. I'm really glad you said that, or I would have kind of forgotten that that's where I started. Yeah, my first, I got a position in the San Francisco State Advertising Club, and I was enjoying it.
mm-hmm.
And then I got an internship with Ron Wren, and I enjoyed going to Ron's office and pouring him coffee, and coffee's kind of Ron, to tell you the truth, But it was all progressing because it's really hitting me right now. Like once you start the path of like, yeah, I'll just do it's pretty good.
Yeah, I'll just give up 30 years, like 30 years of my life. It's all right.
My God, does that path keeps unfolding just like the other magical one would. So because once I did Ron Rand, then of course, my mentor was like, hey, I've got another one for you. You should do Charles Schwab. Now I'm getting into dangerous territory. Right? Okay, that's quite a leap from Ron to Charles Schwab, where I get a badge and I go up corporate layers and I get assignments that are passed down from whoever's above the ceiling that you never meet. That's true.
Damn.
That was a weird thing. And then you get the assignment, you do it, and then you send it up to whoever's up there that you never meet and see if it meets their approval.
Is that like Mike Myers living in the evil lair sending it down or something?
Yeah, it was really some weird shit. And then they'd send it back down and you'd be like, oh, they didn't like it.
That's kind of creepy, man. It's a little creepy. And
then from there, and then from there to a a really great internship at Levi Strauss and Company, where they had me working in their corporate communications. But see, it just starts to snowball. It starts to snowball.
Yeah. Yeah.
The corporate track can have so many appeals,
Right.
big paychecks, wild benefits,
Yeah.
huge corporate parties. But I think deepest of all, the ability to assume that their 100-year-old historic Levi Strauss brand is now you too.
Mm.
That's some elusive stuff. That's some ego. That's some ego
Yeah,
attractive stuff.
that's like some deep stuff there, because that's like, it's almost like being, well, it's not almost like, it's like, but it's like being programmed a bit, right? Like your identity shifting. It's like, so now the heart and the soul and everything that you said that you wanted to be. Whoops, sorry about that. No, I'm not. I'll do that again. I'm gonna put your face right on there. So this is how we do this show. Whenever I hit the wrong button, I'm like, deal with it. It's like, it's fun. But yeah, I'm curious on like the whole thing of like the heart, like the heart path, the soul path that you were talking about. And then we compromise that a little bit. We're like, oh, because the mind's like, well, I don't know how to make money with that, so I'm going to go do this first. And I can always come back to that, right? And what is coming back to it mean? 5 years, a year, 10 years, 20, never. And then you slowly, if this is for people that have a calling, that have something in their heart and soul they know they're supposed to do. If they love their job, power to them. We're not condemning that. It's really about the listening to the difference, because it's like life can just slip by. And I'm so guilty of this. Like I did the same thing. I'm like, finance degree, stock trader, retire, go into more trading, then mortgages. Oh, I want to go to film school of music again. You got all this money. Like, no, we're going to go back mortgages because there's money there. And it's like, in every one of those situations, every one of those, like the off the floor trading office, the mortgage office, just, you appreciate this. Instead of actually caring about the task or the thing that we're trying to do, all I see is a sitcom, a story, a film, characters. And I would go home every night and I would just write everything down. And I'm like, that's how my soul worked. Like, I just wanted to play. I just wanted to tell stories. I just wanted to look for the fun. And these
Hey,
people, you know what I mean?
you just nailed it. I think you just really nailed a really deep insight.
What's that?
And one that's I've never really thought of before. The fact that, look, if you're somewhere and all of your passionate imagination goes to the tasks at hand, you're in alignment with
Yeah.
wherever you are. But if you're somewhere and the team's moving that way, it's all about this, but you keep doing this tangential imagination desire to make it something else.
Right.
Yeah, you need to look at that tangent you're doing.
I did all the time. Like, it was the same thing over and over. Even God, even when I was in the height of my stock trading, screaming, yelling on the floor, having people spit all over me and fighting over money, all I saw was the comedy there. Outside of the stress that was like kicking my ass because it was horrible inside my body. But it was like, even then, and one of the guys drew a picture of the whole crowd and kind of like, took the piss out of each one of the people. Like, the thing they were known for, like one guy, his toupee would fly off all the time. The other guy, like the broker, would be spraying stuff out of his mouth. It was always that humor. And it's like,
you were the guy scripting it. Like, great, I'm capturing this.
But I
something.
spent all those years, like you said, it's like all those years, like doing what I thought I was supposed to do, because that'll make dad happy subconsciously, right? Or that'll make the world happy. Or I can be seen more successfully by other people if I drive a Porsche and I got a lot of money, even though my soul's dying inside and I really just want to be a performer and entertainer, So yeah, it's a really interesting story. That's why I wanted to tap into your side of that. Like,
The same thing was happening to me. You just showed me that, because when I got to Levi Strauss and Company, I was in the corporate communications department, where the focus was, hey, how do we communicate this? How do we write good bios? That's something we were doing. And how do we, how do we write up Bill? Yeah, how do we write up Bill?
I'm laughing. It's kind of like,
better, yeah. And then how do we issue great press releases, right? Those are the two primary things that we were doing. But look, I was doing the same thing as you. I was I was going home after work. I went home after work and I said, oh my gosh, like what the third thing we were supposed to do is we were kind of the keepers of the corporate vision and the mission statement and the corporate values. We were the keepers of those. So could we write them up and distribute them really well?
Mm.
I was thinking different than everybody in the whole department. I went home, stewed up a big creative project that I saw as possible. I came back and I said, we should do a traveling keynote speaker roadshow about this. And I proposed the whole thing. I'll go to all the factories around the country as a keynote speaker with a great slide deck, and I will present the values and the mission of Levi Strauss & Company to everybody who's actually working on the jeans.
Anything to get on that stage, bro.
Right.
That's where it started.
There it was,
yeah.
right?
You were behind that 100%, not because you gave a crap necessarily about the Levi Strauss brand, but you were pitching that as a value add. So, well, I know you love everybody.
Yeah.
So
but you got it. Yeah. Because inside me, my outer purpose has had a lot to do with get on stages, speak to uplift.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, when they said, no, thank you, wonderful idea, no, thank you, not interested at all, I came up with another one. Oh, let's make a really funny orientation training video for new employees. And that one they said yes to. So
oh, nice.
I got to cast that movie, do a cameo in that movie and film that movie for a Levi budget of, I guess, about $250,000 at the time.
My God, can you call them for me for this show? I'll take back the other part. I'll edit that out. The other.
But that shows us ourselves. I think you killed it. That shows us ourselves. Like, look, if we watch in ourselves, I think, where do your instincts and your imaginations keep leading you to say, well, that would be more joyful.
Yeah. I love that.
Would turn me on.
I love this.
That would turn me on. If we would do that, can we do that?
Right.
That's what you're wanting to raise your hand for.
God, I swear I felt like it was the same thing. I felt every place I ever worked was how do we, even on my own entrepreneurial path, I got to a point where I was like, I kept trying to, I was going up a different area. I'm like, oh, I'm a digital marketer or whatever. How can I make that comedic and entertaining? Because I don't really want to digital market. You know what I mean? So there was always like, I was trying to bring my soul into what I did instead of bringing what I did into my soul. I've probably said that backwards, but you know what I mean. What I was saying is leading with the soul. Yeah.
I was trying to bring my soul into whatever I did. Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah, because it's like I remember, those environments. For instance, just to wrap up that side of it, it was like I remember being in a trading room. This was upstairs. This wasn't on the floor. And there was this funny ass character from, I want to say Brooklyn or Buffalo, New York, or something like that. And we had these machines that had all the stock prices going up and down. And this guy would make an announcement when it's super quiet. He'd be like, "IBM's going up," unless it doesn't. Like it was just these characters, right? And then we had this other quiet guy who was just sitting there, and he had a real high pitched voice, kind of like the Pillsbury Doughboy, and he made like $2, $3, $4 million swings every day. And he was just, you couldn't tell, like poker face. He had no idea if he's getting crushed or if he's killing it. And then there was like another guy, like I'd sit there and I'd see his aura was like glowing with all these red colors. I'm like, this dude's all pissed off about something. Like there was just so much humor, and also the whole spiritual piece that was in there too. I would go into the office meetings and they're talking about, oh, earnings are coming out for so-and-so. I'm like, all your spirit guides are here. It's like, you guys have any fucking clue what's happening right now? Like that was my thing. It was the consciousness, the comedy, and the storytelling. So I just
see, and
really
don't we,
that.
And, I mean, life works out perfect, right? I think there's a perfection to all of our steps. But looking back, I mean, I agree with you. Wouldn't it have been incredible if somebody really close to you one day found your comedic spiritual journey notes about the work you were at, and they were laughing their ass off, and they're going, "This is amazing shit to read. Oh my God, please turn this into something." Right. Then what happens? We know you spin that into some gold. Yeah. And who's coming to mind right now is Michael of the Michael Lewis.
Michael Lewis. I don't think I know.
Michael Lewis, he went into this, his first job was in stock, in Wall Street, heavy
Oh,
arms.
right.
And then he was doing the same thing as you, except not from the spiritual side. He was just taking notes on the insanity. And then he turned it into a book, and that became the basis of his storytelling career now.
I remember that. I remember that
You know,
now. Yeah.
but it
Yeah.
but
It's, oh,
it shows us. I think you and I have really have
I think
really
that's the goal.
surfaced a. Well, I
Yeah.
think we've surfaced a really good point.
Yeah.
You
It's like,
know,
how are you being wherever you're at? Like,
yeah.
what are you
What's
actually
your
dreaming of
inclination?
and thinking
Yeah.
of,
What
being
are you
drawn
trying to turn
towards?
it into? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, God, there's so many of those. I remember even being in my spiritual group, which was all like everybody was like, can you fix me, teacher? Like I'm broken. Like everybody was all serious and all this kind of stuff. And I would just sit there. Like I saw there was like a Buddha in the restaurant. And I forgot what it was doing with the thing. I just like somehow got a vision of doing like no disrespect to any Buddhist, so get over it. This is a late night show. I got an inclination to like, the Buddha was coming, and it's like I covered my third eye with this, and like, Mo from the Three Stooges was trying to poke me. I covered up my third eye so he couldn't poke me in the third eye. Just like little stuff like that. We were just always finding the humor. And I talk about this a few times on this show. They called me the Heyoka, which is like the trickster and the wise fool and all that. It was the one that makes people laugh, rides the horse backwards on the reservation,
Yeah.
gets people
Yeah.
laughing and elevated, and then gives them the truth, gives them the wisdom, and calls them forward. And it's like, you're the same way, because you have this
That
amazing, I haven't seen you do a lot of corporate speeches, but I've seen you have so much humor, and you started with that. So we know that's like deep inside you, and you're just an incredible storyteller. So it's like, it's a magnificent combo you got.
I'm still trying to sort out the combo that I am,
Yeah.
because my role models, my truest role models, span from Carl Sagan.
Mhm.
He's not making a lot of jokes, but he's just so wildly articulate in an awe-inspiring, uplifting way, right? He connects us to something in us that says, "Oh my gosh, like I'm bonding with the universe through what he says," right? He's somehow so deeply spiritual.
Sounds like
And then
Rumi.
so I take a lot, so I see parts of myself through Carl Sagan. And then on the other end of the spectrum, Roberto Benigni calls to my soul,
Mm,
who is the Italian version of Jim Carrey, right?
yeah.
Um, and kind of everybody in between. So sometimes I think the difficulty, that there's at least two levels of difficulty to this, but they're completely accomplishable. The first level of difficulty might be, I don't even know where I am on the map. Like, I'm not really sure what I'm uniquely designed to do, because I think that's what our outer purpose is playing to what you're uniquely designed to do.
Mm,
Especially, or almost as a requirement, when it brings you joy. This is to me, is the divine intersection of our outer purpose. Is you're uniquely designed to do it, and it brings you great joy. Thank you.
yeah,
Like, that's
it's
awesome.
like I don't know. I heard this word in my mouth. It's probably not me. I think somebody's channeling some stuff in. But it's like having sex with the universe in a way. It's like, it's not, because we can have gifts that we're great at, but they don't bring us joy. But the one that brings
Right.
us joy, even if you're doing hard ass work, even if you're doing Mother Teresa work, I'm sure that brought her tremendous fulfillment and joy, right? So it's like, it's built into the DNA that, I mean, we're wired up by this beautiful divine power that wants us to feel good, that wants us to be aligned and on purpose and be in joy and be abundant. And I know it's going to smack us and throw bricks at us and all this stuff, because it likes to have that. It likes to like have that cosmic joke side of it too. But it's built
I think
in. It's built in,
it
isn't
is,
it?
and I think comedically, the great illustrator, a great illustration of this is Ricky Gervais when he
Oh
was
yeah.
doing his show Humanity.
I
Do
know.
you
I just
remember
watched
the?
that. I just watched
Do you
that.
remember? Oh, so you remember the bit about God giving the dogs their assignments?
Yeah.
I think that's sort of my metaphorical version of how we come into Earth is that I think that the whatever designs, right, says, Scott, you're gonna love doing this, and you're gonna be uniquely suited to do it. Thank you. Perfect assignment.
Right.
Patrick, you're going to love telling stories and you're going to be uniquely designed to do it. Perfect. Thank you. And then we come here and we've forgotten,
Yeah.
but it's still there. It's still built in. And we've got a world that's telling us all these other options to do. The reason why I became a college speaker first and foremost, to get out there and reach as many students as I could with the message of do what you love, follow your passion,
so good,
is because I was uniquely aware from having just been a college student that every chart published on a college campus, and they're published everywhere. They're in the free magazines, they're on the posters on the wall. They litter the Career Services Center is the hot jobs of 2022, which is the antithesis of what does your soul desire to do?
Thank you for saying that. Thank you.
So it leads you away from what your soul desires to do. All these external flag waves that said, you could make a lot of money here and a lot of people are hiring. And so I was trying to be an anecdote to fuck those charts. Those charts have nothing to do with your design. They perhaps have nothing to do with your passion. What do you want to do that you joyfully desire and would wake up to do for fun, that feeds your soul? Do that.
I am so with you. And
I was always positive.
Yeah.
And this is why I could be an effective speaker on that subject, because I had not one cell in my body of the trillions that doubted the premise, which is if you trust your soul and you play for your joyful desires, guess what? That's the hottest chart in the world.
Damn. That's a mic drop right there. I
always knew it. I had not one thing. No one could approach me and say, yeah, but if I do what I love, what if I don't make money? And I was like, what are we talking about? That's impossible.
Okay, so let's unwrap that, because I think that's huge. That reminds me a little bit too, just on the same token. Jim Carrey talked about one of those speeches, a famous speech he had, where he was talking about his father, who basically how you could fail at doing what you hate. So why not give yourself a chance to do what you love? If you can fail at what you don't like and what you're not here to do, why would you ever not go for your truth? So let's address that, and let's address the common objections, and even let's talk about the big ones, or like, money first, but then also, hey, I've got a family, I got kids to feed, all those things. Because I think there's some truth to that. But how would you handle following that spark, following that journey, and never, ever, ever giving it up? And people that say, well, I don't really know what I want. Let's unwrap that stuff, because I think those are super important.
Okay. Those are three things.
Good memory.
Should we start at the first one, which was also which is kind of also four, because you bifurcated it into 2 ages.
I know. See, I'm still like, I'm a rookie host, but I'm improving all the time.
So as long as you have notes on the 4 questions, because you did make a great distinction, and that's why I noticed that you made a distinction between those who sort of, if you will, I'm going to call it a youthful, unencumbered stage of their life, and those versus who have bills and a family and a mortgage.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you said, hey, you know what? Can we speak to both groups? So I'll go fast, obviously.
Oh, just do your thing, man.
No dissertation, right?
Do your thing.
But for the unencumbered in life, why would you do anything except pursue what is joyful to you? Although I quite know why most people won't, and it's because you swim in a society that above all else values and celebrates money and wealth. And so you are being indoctrinated. You've been indoctrinated probably almost since birth to believe that the way to truly be successful in life is to have a lot of money to show for it. And now it's the most extreme I've ever seen it, because it's not just a concept that you read in a book or in a magazine profile of a billionaire. It's shown to you with vivid, attractive, sexy, gorgeous visual images of supposedly rich people lying on beaches around the world or living in Bali in their swimsuits perpetually
Yeah.
on private islands and dance parties.
Welcome to
So why would
Instagram.
yeah, so,
Yeah.
and the only carrot those people are ever dangling is if you were to become as rich as I am, you too could be free to travel the world in
Mm,
your bathing suit and party.
right.
Now, I'd be plenty open to that being, to that being overly reductive. Of course, I would be, but for the sake of that, let's just say that I think that's a very sincere obstacle. I started to have some real concerns when game shows started to give away $1 million for very little effort.
Yeah.
I just thought
Interesting.
this all just seems like it's kind of going sideways.
Mm,
Um, I I don't know how I knew it, but I've always known it. I think some things are just divinely given as part of our dharma, in order to accomplish our whatever is your unique purpose. I think some things you didn't even have to earn to know. I didn't really seemingly have to earn to know that money is not the end all. I didn't have to earn to know that your soul, that if you take care of your soul whole life will take care of itself, and you will be more meaningfully fulfilled and excited about life than those who only pursue money on the false perception that when they have a lot of it, suddenly they'll be gloriously happy.
yeah. I can I can't tell you how many people, including myself, like when I was 20, what I think 27 or 28, I was making 100 grand a month. I had over $1 million a year. And I was like, found myself in a fetal position, rocking back and forth on the floor, wanting to die. And I was like, what? I got the American dream. I did what they said. I got a Porsche. I got a penthouse. I got a Steinway piano. I'd still like to have that. That was good. But it's like, what is happening? I've got these huge allergic big red shiners underneath my eyes. Like my inside out was like beating me, trying to get my attention. And I just had no clue back then. I had no place in my soul. I was disconnected. I shut everything off I wanted to do, and it was just all about money and success. And I was absolutely miserable. And I love money and success and abundance. It's not that. It was my soul was so off path that it was kicking my ass. And I really but that was the blessing that opened up the whole spiritual path for me and the whole personal growth path to start unwinding all those stories and the father stories and societal stories and all the stuff you're talking about. So I relate, man. I feel that in my soul deep.
What I would wish for more people is that what we do is we go, hey, if we're going to have a conversation about following your bliss and doing what you love and being successful, then then it can't be one conversation. We need to create two separate conversations. So let's separate them.
Mm,
Okay. Later, after we have the first conversation, we're going to have a conversation. This is going to be a conversation mostly about how to make money. And it's a unique skill, and it can be studied, developed, and learned. But included in that conversation about money, we're going to talk about the real benefits of money and what money can't do for you. Money has also limitations that aren't spoken about enough. Let's put that conversation down because it should happen second. This is just going to be a conversation about how to feed your soul.
mm,
Because if you feed your soul, then you get most of what you want in life, which is joy, fulfillment, adventure, excitement, connection, internal love. Um, and you feel like, oh, and most of all, the feeling of aliveness. And you feel like, man, I'm really winning in life. Oh, except I need more money. Great.
right.
Remember, we said we were going to make that a separate conversation.
Yeah.
I think it becomes really problematic that both people are combining those two conversations. And it is very clear to me now, more clear than ever. Someone might be really good at pursuing their joy, but have never learned wealth skills, money
Yeah.
making.
Yeah.
And so they end up feeling like my joy doesn't make me money, when in fact, it would be more accurate to say, my joy has the potential to make me any amount of money. I don't yet understand the principles of money mastery.
Mm.
two conversations.
I love that. I think that's brilliant, and that's the one thing that really sticks with me with you is you're such a stand for bliss and a yes and. Like
Hmm.
you don't ever. I've never heard you ever say, "I'm going to do what I love. I don't know how to make money with it," or figure it out. Right? As far as
Yeah.
I know, I've never seen that with you. And I shouldn't say most, a lot of people on this planet, myself included, in the past, even now, if I whisper without anybody watching, there's little pieces of like, how do I do this? Like, what can I do to like keep moving in this direction and take care of that side of it? Um, without,
There's nothing you can't make really good money with.
of course, I agree, especially
Yeah.
now more than ever, right? Now more than
Yeah.
ever. Yeah. It's a really, I just love your stand for that. And also your stand for yourself and your stand for everyone that you serve. It's just a powerful, powerful thing. And it's separating like, what do they say? Something from the chaff or something like that. I forget what
Yeah. Yeah. The wheat from the,
yeah, it's like separating the thing because
but I
they're,
never want to attempt the word chaff.
you know, me either.
But
What
that
does
might
that
be
even
it. That might
mean?
be how you pronounce it.
What does
I
that
like to
even
think it means husk of some sort.
Yeah, let's just say,
Yeah.
let's separate the husk from the hoo-ha, from the good stuff.
Perfect.
But
Perfect.
it's like, that's really it. It's like
You know what?
what the first question should be.
I had one really severe money making limiting belief. I've had many.
Really?
I grew up low income. So actually, I've had limited, limiting beliefs around money my entire life. I still have limiting beliefs about money. I'm still consciously working on expanding and empowering my beliefs about money always because I'm full of them.
Yeah.
However,
Yeah.
the one that almost stopped me from having the single greatest experience of my life, which was doing my one person theater show,
Yeah.
is that I thought, well, there's an area where you can't make money in theater. I had completely absorbed all programming that said, first of all, that said artists don't make that much money. And if you want an artist that really doesn't make money, bring me a theater artist. And if you want to make it even harder, bring me a solo theater
Oh
artist.
God. Right.
And then
Right.
if you want to make it even more difficult, bring me one with no training, no schooling. And so that tested. So I, at the, after all that, I thought to myself, well, when I go into theater, if I go into theater, surely I will make no money.
Wow.
That's for sure.
That's what you told yourself?
Of course.
Ah.
Of
And
course.
so what
So I
did
went
you
into it. I hid from it for 8 years, which
Wow.
is no secret,
Yeah.
I did not give up on it, but I hid from taking it to the stage because I was too terrified of being able to be. I was too terrified of failing on stage with just comedy and story. So for 8 years, I couldn't find the courage in myself to do that. What I did find the courage to do is begin writing stories and working on the craft of writing
Can
stories.
I ask a question really quick on that? Did you, since you were pretty darn good at performing on stage already, raw, call it talented, what was coming up with you about failure? Was it because it was comedic? Was it because it was storytelling? Like, what was that thing that was there that was different from the early days where you were just like a fish to water?
Let's figure out what you're asking. This could be
Do I
interesting.
speak with
Thank you.
forked tongue again? I'm starting to get a
No, no,
complex there.
no. No, your earlier days where you're describing kind of a confident performer.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what you're referencing.
Yeah,
Are
you
you
were talking
referencing
about
second
like,
grade?
yeah,
Like
like,
the second
well, that's the
grader,
second grade.
the
The
high
other one,
schooler,
yeah, the high
right?
schooler,
Yeah, and
all
then the
that
guy that
stuff.
snuck out for comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting, right? Because I thought you might be referring to the fact that when I finally started my to try my one person comedy show, I was 31 or 33 years old or something, and I'd already had 300 or 400 successful inspirational keynotes under my belt, during which I would tell some short funny stories or short dramatic stories.
Right. So you
So
were pretty good on stage already. You had the confidence. So what
so
was
by all appearances from the outside, I should have had a modicum of confidence that said, well, this is just kind of a lateral step where I'm just tell a longer story and be funnier, right? So, but to me, from the inside out, it looked like everything I've done, because I didn't have a memory of, well, I didn't care what I did in second grade. I wasn't great, trust me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You
I
didn't
didn't
walk
care
in.
what I did in high school because that was just some seriously like awful entertainment that I can't believe I was willing to do. Right. Um, all I thought was to move from inspirational speaking to a comedic one person show is not a lateral move. It's they're entirely different skill sets of which I have no relationship to the new one, none whatsoever. There's nothing in speaking that will pull forward and benefit me once I walk out onto a stage in a theater with the objective to entertain, like a Spalding Gray meets John Leguizamo. There's nothing
Right.
in me. And the
Right.
primary obstacle, Scott, was very clearly that I thought comedians and artists were cool, and I was not.
Wow. When did you discover, did that come fully into your awareness? Because I think you're one of the coolest fuckers out there. And I have that same dialogue in my thing. Like I'll compare myself to other people and say, oh, these guys are so cool. Look at Dave Chappelle. Look at, Ricky Gervais. Look at Bill Burr. Like they have a swag. They're cool. And it's
Yeah.
like, and I'm
Oh,
like,
and
oh,
let's add,
I'm just this dude.
yeah, yes, 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 for me. And then I'd add one other word that's super relevant. And they were talented in a bona fide way, and I am not. Those were my two deepest limiting beliefs and my deepest self perceptions that were blocking me from going into comedy slash into what I call the one comedic one person show. Is I came out of my childhood feeling incredibly uncool. And then when I hung out with musicians in college and after college, I became certain I was uncool. I laugh because I just think of hanging out with those initial guys, and every day to me was like the joy of hanging out with Tom Petty combined with the contrast.
Oh
Like
my
I was
God.
like, God, you guys drink a cup of coffee cooler than I do. I want to hold my cup like you. So, but this is real stuff.
Yeah.
It's self-image, to get very, very real. Um, One of the most important lessons I've learned along the way, both experientially and then psychologically, so that I can communicate to other people, is your self-image is the number one limiter for what you won't do. If you don't see yourself in the role, you can't be yourself in the role.
Hmm.
And so I perceived great these great theater artists as both a combination of cool and bona fide and talented in a bona fide way. And I perceive myself as not on both of those things.
So is this an identity conversation?
It's an identity conversation,
Okay.
you know?
And what did you do to shift behind that or to shift out? So you started writing. You were doing this behind the scenes for a long time, basically, because you felt, was that limiting belief with you for that long? While you were writing,
Yeah.
while you were doing all that? Yeah.
Yeah. While I was doing, and it wasn't inspirational speaking did not make me feel cooler.
Yeah, I could
And
see
it did
that.
not make me feel, and it did not make me feel more talented as anything except a speaker. I was definitely more talented as a
So
speaker.
is there, I always hear conversations of like being able to take one part of your life and take that confidence and that energy and bring it into the new part of your life. Like for instance, I know with me, like my commitment to health and fitness, and spirituality and soul, taking care of my soul and all that stuff is like, it's a 50 out of 10. Like there's no, I just will never, ever, ever, ever negotiate any of that stuff. And then it's like, but when it comes to the business and money side, it's like, well, this is a new journey, a new adventure. And yeah, I've got old stuff to pull from there, but it's kind of a different, way different animal, like you're saying. So I'm curious how you if you were able to do that, or if you just got to a point where the pain of not doing it started kicking your ass, because that's usually what happens when you get older too, right?
You're so smart. Yeah, I just got to a point where the pain, literally, epically, awfully, horrendously, came a dark night of the soul where I was in my hotel, some hotel, because I was doing inspirational speaking, and and I knew I was writing stories because I desired to be like a Spalding Gray or a John Leguizamo, and then and I had seen John Leguizamo's show. No, I had not seen John Leguizamo yet. I was doing this all because I had seen Spalding Gray and a guy no one's ever heard of that was fucking incredible, a local performer out of Santa Fe who stopped over in San Francisco. And I just want to shout out his name right now, Josh Schrei. Oof, Josh Schrei rewired my brain with his one-person show one day. And so I was just working on behalf of these two icons I had in my head. And I didn't know what John Leguizamo existed until I was in a hotel room one night. And I turned on HBO. And suddenly John Leguizamo is on the screen. For those of you who aren't in this medium, right, of the one-person show, Spalding Gray invented it. He invented the medium.
Hmm.
And he would sit behind a desk and he would have a cup of coffee and he would have his notes in front of him and he would tell you, he would just rivet you with a story from his life for 2 hours. But he'd never leave that desk and he'd never shapeshift characters or anything.
Is he alive,
John
or is that someone from old
John,
times?
or Spalding Gray is no longer alive.
Okay.
He's no longer with us.
Yeah, yeah.
So I thought that was the high bar I was pursuing, that I was too afraid to do. And then I turn on HBO and John Leguizamo, a young man at the time, he probably was 24, might have been younger, in his first special ever taped on Broadway called Freak comes on. And he's suddenly like the appearance of Elvis. He's so, I'm going to say this knowing that it's completely subjective and that I'm not trying to compare the two artists, but he's so, he made Spalding Gray look like black and white. It was like so wild.
Yeah.
Because he was shape shifting into 20 different characters, male,
Right.
female, young, old. He was funny. His jokes per minute were much higher. He was utilizing the entire stage with blocking. He was a triple threat. He could dance, he could act, he could story. The guy was he was an Elvis. He was just unreal. Scott, it was devastating to me. I thought I was aiming for here with Spalding Gray, and then suddenly I saw the greatest thing a human being could ever do with their life, and the bar was there.
Wow.
And it destroyed me in that hotel room. It destroyed me. I've never had the feeling before or since where what I was watching him do on screen, I didn't want to take my eyes off of. And this is when your soul, you're so close to you're so on what your soul is telling you to do that you can't take your eyes off of it. It feels like every cell in your body is electrified and has come alive to its purpose. It's calling. And yet, because I wasn't doing it and I had so much fear, I also simultaneously wanted to turn the TV off because it was too painful. It was too painful.
Oh, I get that.
I was too envious. And most of all, I felt too shut out from what I desired most. The most painful feeling I've ever known in my life could be said in this sentence. Our greatest fear is that our dream doesn't desire us as much as we desire our dream. And I came face to face with that agony in that hotel room one day, that night. And by the grace of God, I reached for a pen and paper and I wrote out, "What are you so afraid of?" And I journaled it all. And when I journaled it, all these fears were suddenly visible in the light of day, and they started to melt away. And then in came a revelation that my overly ambitious mind could not come up with on its own. It was like a whisper from God and it said, couldn't you just do it for fun? And when I heard that sentence, all the pressure that I had assumed that I would put on myself, well, if I went into a one-person show, I'd have to be as great as Spalding Gray. I'd have to be as successful at the one-person show as I am in my speaking career. It all dropped to the floor.
Like the weight just left.
And the answer was, oh my God, I could just tell a story in a theater for fun once. And I was unstuck.
That is like, I could feel that, like the weight just, it goes back to all the stories that this is again is our society, right? Besides our own little internal adjustments or perspectives, but it's like society. Well, I can't do that unless I can fill up a stage like Ed Sheeran with 80,000 people at Wembley. So why bother? But but there's a piano sitting over here that every night that I now play and write songs to, literally for a half hour before bed every night. And I just when I put the cover back on, I'm like, thank you. Just thank you. My soul is just like, yes. Am I ever going to be as great as them or as big as them? Doubtful. Will I ever be as connected to my soul as them? Yeah, I think I can be. I think you can be. And that's the thing. Awesome. And that's the thing. It's like, it's a different conversation, which maybe we'll bring up later, but I'll just kind of tag it or plant a seed about people that have, and I've talked to you about this before, people that have multiple gifts and multiple desires in their creativity or in their projects, 'cause that's something I've struggled with for a long time, because I was, playing piano at 5. I was getting paid professionally as a photographer at 10. I was always the comedian. I was like Jim Carrey, like walking in the room, making everybody laugh. And then I was like sitting by myself in the basement, just watching fish and breeding fish and breeding plants and looking at the pictures that I was taking and how they were like capturing life force and like this moment in time. Like, so there was the spiritual, there was the conscious, there was the humor, there was the fun, there was all these different things. And I'm like, and I spent so much of my life struggling with that journey. It was like for the first 10, 15 years of that journey, maybe even longer, I was like, am I a writer? Am I a storyteller? Am I a comedian? Am I this? And I would just spin and spin and spin. And I finally just said, yeah, yeah. And so that's where the variety show has come to be birthed, because it's a container that allows me to do all of that. And maybe I won't be the best singer-songwriter in the world or the best comedian in the world or whatever, but I'm going to have some freaking fun. And I'm going to express my soul, and I'm going to make an impact to as many people as I can to help them laugh, to help them wake up to the truth of their being, to follow their bliss, to follow their soul, and to give themselves permission to tap into some of that, because I know the pain of not doing that. And I know you do too.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. Really well said.
Yeah.
This, let's jump off here for a minute, if you will, on this really interesting point about, will you ever become the best at what you do?
I knew you were going to unpack that. Yeah. Because what is the best anyway? What is the best?
My journey with that, was that, as I already said, of course, the guys I wish that I could be as good at,
right,
were legends, literally, are the legends of the industry, right?
Totally.
So it really is a part in me that says, I would like to be one of the legends of the industry, right? Because who wouldn't want, so in whatever we aspire to do, why would we not want to have a shot at being one? Why wouldn't? Where would you like to sit? I'd like to sit in the legend section.
Right, I'm going to hang up there with Dave Chappelle, please.
Yeah. So this is going to be a universal feeling. I would guess that if someone doesn't have that feeling, then they're either wildly whole, which is beautiful, right? And in their wholeness, they're now unconcerned with position or rank or even sort of qualitative results, right?
Yeah.
It's just whatever it is for them. It's a pure divine act that expresses, and then they're unconcerned about the results. Or if someone doesn't really desire to be the best, then it could also be a limiting belief, based on a past trauma, that they've kind of cut themselves off from that part. So what was interesting to me though is that I moved forward with my one person show on Just for Fun, which was a release of like, oh my God, I don't have to be as good as those guys. You know, I probably never will be there. I mean, they trained at acting schools I can only dream of going to with acting teachers that are legend. But this was my pleasant surprise. I worked on that show. 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 I worked on my craft. 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 You get the point, for years and years and years and years, joyfully, the most joyful endeavor ever. Just constantly like, I wonder if I can get a little better. I wonder if I can make the show a little better. I wonder if I can perform a little better. And there came moments, or there came shows, many of them, where one of two things happened, and they were both just extraordinary results in the category of you're the best. Mostly they came in shows, in performances, where when I walked off on stage, I felt entirely, completely, without any shadow of a doubt, that I was the best at performing every possibility of that show. That I was somehow like the best. It was an internal claim of you're killing it.
Yeah.
Like you have exceeded even what might have been possible for the show in someone else's hands. You're the best at doing your own show. But that's real and that's rewarding. And so I have been the best in that manner. I have certainly been the best that I ever thought I could be. But the second reward is it's a little lighter, and obviously it's subjective and there's no truth to it except for the person that was saying it to me. And that's the people that would come out of my audience and say, I've seen them all, and you're my favorite. And so in that way, you're like, oh my gosh, to somebody, I am in their league. I am in their league. And all I ever really wanted to do was to be in the league, to find in myself, really, that I could perform at the level I dreamed of, being able to be. And your audience helps you know whether you're there or not.
Right. So it was more of like a...
But I never, obviously I never achieved the notoriety or the fame or the, whatever the theater award is. I don't even know the name because I never got one.
Me either. I have the word...
Obie? Maybe it's an Obie or something.
I have Clio come up. I think that's commercials. So I don't know what that is.
Clios are commercials. Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, whatever they give out there, I don't know what it is.
Yeah. You didn't get one.
Yeah. So there's a level at which I didn't attain. Ask me if I care.
Do you care?
I just don't. I don't.
Yeah.
I would gladly take it. Yes, I would gladly. But there's nothing missing because I didn't. And so that's what I would want people to know. Like, look, if you're shooting for there, great. If you shoot and you don't end up where you think the pinnacle is, I don't think you're going to miss it.
What comes up is like, it feels like you decided to drop the comparison. Like you're like, hey, I want to be quote unquote world class. I want to be the best I can be. Like that's the drive. That's a God thing. That's a soul thing, right? I want to be the best I can be, but I don't have to be as famous as these other people or as known as these other people. It's more about like, can I take on and become the best version of myself with whatever it is I'm doing? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, largely. The fame is not in our control.
Right.
You know what else is not really? Yeah, the fame's not in our control. So I think that I learned to start really deeply accepting like what is in my control and what's not in my control. And I don't get down on myself for what's not in my control.
Makes sense.
So anyhow,
that's I can say because I was fortunate enough to win a day with you on one of your live shows.
Yeah, you won it.
Yeah,
right.
I was like, I don't know what I said to you, but whatever it was, it resonated deeply with you. And I spent the whole day with you behind stage. I was watching the guys put the stuff up with our ladders. I was watching you. I got all those pictures, all that stuff that I sent you. And, watching you and asking you questions. And it was so interesting because you were the guy that was like getting ready to perform. And yet you were saying, ask me anything, ask me what you want. And I found that fascinating because it's like usually you're getting in your space and all the things, but I just watched you and I watched you were studying, you were getting in space, you were getting there, you were like sitting in the chair and looking out at the empty theater and all the things. And like, it was so cool. And I remember, because it spoke so highly to me, that I took a picture of me in the theater on the stage, looking back at all the seats myself. Right. Cause I was like, and I still look at that picture every day. I'm like, I want to do this.
It's a great view, isn't it? It's the greatest view in the world.
There's just something about being up on stage if you have that calling.
If you have that calling, that's just the greatest view in the world.
It's like you're just there. You're just this channel of the divine sharing your gifts in whatever way. I mean, I think, I'm a little biased towards more artistic, creative expressions than I am just the speaking thing, but speaking moves and changes lives like crazy, and I love it. But there's something to me about music, spoken word shows, storytelling, stuff like that. So,
hey, I had you asked a question earlier, and I'm going to answer it.
Yeah.
I had a little insight this week when I was teaching at one of my company's Bliss Champions.
Yes.
And so at Bliss Champions, the objective is to help people move from wherever they are and reinvent their life so that they're aligned with their bliss and their experience greater joy and greater aliveness through their doing and being. And a conversation that we always have in Bliss Champions is how important believing in yourself is. Well, in order to believe in yourself, you need to clear limiting beliefs, right? Mm-hmm. But this is kind of on that, but this hit me. In an ideal world, we would pursue, I'll show you this, we would pursue our bliss with total belief in ourselves. Oh, let's see. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to see if this translates here. Okay. So this is going to work. Wait. Okay. So you don't,
it's backwards because I got you mirrored, but it's backwards. But yeah,
it's the simplest chart ever. So this is great. This is a line. And on this side of the line would be low belief. You don't believe in yourself. Mm-hmm. And on this side of the line is total belief in yourself. So in an ideal world, we would move forward with total belief in ourselves. It just doesn't happen very often. But hopefully you clear limiting beliefs, you get help, and you move from, oh my God, I can't do this, to I might be able to do this. That's my favorite spot to do things from, is I just might be able to do this. Okay. But here's what my career has been like. So I know this to be a great truth. Okay. This line right here is the amount of courage required. Let's see. Do I have this right? Let's see. Wait. This is a brand new chart for me. I believe. Yes. This line right here is the amount of courage required. Okay. Right down here. So watch this. I have done my speaking, my writing, and my one-person show with very little belief in myself. I have always thought I'm the last guy that should be a speaker. I don't know how to speak. How am I going to get this done? Therefore, because my belief was so low, the amount of courage required was a lot.
Yeah.
When I started writing books, I thought, I don't believe in myself. So the amount of courage was a lot. When I started doing my one-person show, I don't believe in myself at all. So the amount of courage was maximum. But watch this. If you can move yourself to, oh, I've cleared some limiting beliefs, I've had some good coaching, I see where I picked up these false beliefs about myself, I've done some good training, I have some belief in myself. The amount of courage required is half as much. Wow. It's less.
Wow.
And then I really believe in myself. It takes hardly any courage to do what I do, to set out on this new adventure. This chart is really important to me as a guy that loves to help articulate these important conversations. And Scott, it's because if you can't believe in yourself, you're a lot like me for the first 20 years of my career, or at least the first 12. Yeah, the first 12. Then God gave us courage as the compensator.
Wow. That's profound. Because I've never seen it like drawn into a situation like that. You hear about it. You're like, oh, just have courage and demonstrate courage. And it reminds me, I know this is going to be backwards too, but does this ring a bell to you?
Yeah, yeah.
Have courage. Have courage.
That's yeah. So yeah, I hope that does that translate really directly to what I'm saying? Is
Yeah,
like,
I think it's you're basically saying like if you have really low belief in yourself, it requires a tremendous amount of courage to get out there and
yeah.
start
So
doing stuff.
be
The
brave. Be
more
brave.
you talk yourself into have fun, you can do this, there's a possibility, it requires half the courage.
It's okay to fail. Yeah, like
Yeah,
I can do
it's
this.
like
The
it doesn't
universe has
matter.
my back. The universe has my back.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
got good mentors. Then
Yeah.
then it will not feel so scary.
Right.
But I'm one of the people on the planet where it was my soul's destiny to learn the great use of courage.
Hmm.
So to me, I think, oh, it was a blessing that I didn't believe in myself because God also gave us courage and I used it.
It's like
It was, I
another
used it.
beautiful thing that is implanted in us. It's in our DNA that the universe gave us out of love. That,
Is we can be brave.
yeah.
We can be brave. And the one basic requirement of being
Ah, so good.
courageous and brave for your dreams is simple. Develop a good relationship with failing.
Mm.
The only thing about courage, the only reason courage is ever required is because something deep inside of us has decided, oh, it's terrible to fail. No, it's not.
What does failure or what does failing even mean? Like what is
Well,
the
in comedy, you and I know what it means. It means going
bombed?
out with the intention of being funny and no one laughing. So I've
Right.
done that a lot.
Crickets and tomatoes, right?
Yeah. So I'm not trying to be a failure denier, right? I'm not trying to say, oh, I mean, I, in my profession, failure is like, oh, I fucked that up, and no one was entertained,
But isn't
and
it
it
also how we
sucked to be
learn
up
and get
there.
better? But isn't that also the perception? It's a chance for us to look at the tape, look at our activities and say, okay, what could
It's
have been
the
better?
only
What could
way.
have been funnier? What could have been? So it's like, because I think that some people get in their minds that failure is this horrible thing, and it's like, oh, fail if I fail, if I fail. But it's like, I think a lot of people in the spiritual industry and the personal development look at failure as an opportunity to learn and to grow. And the only
I've
failure
tried
is quitting.
I've tried failure and I've tried success, and I prefer success. However,
I'm with you on
but
that.
but you and I are both saying like, hey, but failure is the necessary stepping stones to get to success. So I'm
Absolutely.
I'm just saying to people that might be relating to like, yeah, I mean, if I go for it, it just feels like it takes great courage. Great, well, great, because you haven't yet acquired belief in yourself in this realm. Like pursue both, please. Like pursue tools for greater belief in yourself, and think Matt Damon. Look, sometimes it just takes 20 seconds of courage, right, to jump
Mm.
in the game and risk what? Risk failure. So really, let's have a conversation about failure. You know,
Risk
well,
failure.
that's one great thing about performers is they know. Well,
Pretty quick.
yeah, you gotta learn that failure is one of your teachers,
Yeah.
and it's one of the best ones. So
Yeah. And the courage piece too. It reminds me of Mel Robbins with her because she's always into the science of things, right? And she's got that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 thing. Like whenever you get that hit, have you read that book or you know much about that? So there's she wrote a book called The 5 Second Habit or the 5 Second Rule, I think it is. And what that is you have an urge. You have an urge to go talk to someone. You have an urge to call someone to ask for an investment. You have you want to like, ask for a raise, like anything that takes courage basically, right? Or you're inspired and you got literally have 5 seconds in your brain to take an action on that in that direction before the other side of your brain kicks in and goes, oh, no, no, that could equal pain. We're going to get rejected or that kind of thing. And it's very powerful. And it's for doing things you don't want to do that you need to do. For instance, like every morning when I do my burpees, I'm like, do I ever want to do burpees? Ever? Like ever? No, I
Oh,
don't. And I'm like, and I sit there and I just look at the floor and I look at the floor and I go, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I'm down. And that starts the cycle. And I use it. I use it a lot, and I use it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in a cold shower. But it's not. My cold showers are kind of lukewarm now because I'm in Texas and it's freaking hot, so the showers don't get ice cold anymore. So yeah, I just love that conversation. There's so many wisdom bombs in here so far. And are you a fan? It seems I remember this too, and I remember having this conversation with you about kind of being all into one thing. I heard two things from you. It's like be all in that lane or in that project. Like if you're speaking, it's all speaking stuff. If you're doing a comedy show, it's all comedy show stuff. At the same time, I also heard you say, I've got a list of projects that I'm working on. And I look at them every day and say, which one do I feel, if there's a deadline, other than a deadline, which one do I feel like inspired to work on right now? So do you still believe in multiple projects or all into one thing until you're the best at it? And for those of us that are a little bit older, that don't have time to wait to be the best at one thing and they got multiple things they want to do, it's like, what's your advice on that?
yeah, that's one of the hardest questions. I don't know if I don't know if if there's a if it can be if it's just individually answered by each person.
Yeah.
I personally like, thank you. Actually, you just asked me. I like multiple projects at once, but then one of those projects, that I can move multiple projects, usually about three at a time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I can, that's accurate. Right now, I write origin stories, say during a typical week. Okay. I write origin stories. I give a talk. I do a creative uh, essay for myself to publish an essay. I work on two other businesses I have. So while being a father and a boyfriend. So, but creatively, that's about five projects
Yeah.
that they're definitely kind of, I like to circle because I'm a big variety guy. I
Yeah.
want to have what I call a blissfolio career, and I want the variety in my week. But the reason why I can do five very effectively, I'm positive, is because we can learn over time to be really, really well structured in our day, right? And so I remember younger me that didn't know how to be so well structured in my day. And, perhaps my life has just been reduced now to, well, there's not a lot of other competing agendas, like so these are my five favorite things to focus on. There's not really anything to competing with them. So
Mm.
it's a great use of my life.
So two
Um,
things, two things
but,
I'd like to hit when you're
just
done.
real quick, but my favorite occurrence is one of these, uh, will suddenly flare up and become obsessive.
Mm.
And I love obsessive peak states, or a project will become obsessive. And all of these now are of very little importance. And one of them is getting a preponderance of attention. And
And
so
and
that's
that's
usually the
following the
secret.
flow. That's following the flow in the energy, I
Yeah.
assume.
Following the
Yeah.
flow. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I can remember what I was going to say, there was two things that came up. Number one, if you're doing, okay, I get the different projects, but let's say different crafts. For instance, let's look at like music and a show or something like that. That's one question. And then the other one is if you want to share how you structure your day so people can kick ass, let's go there.
Probably. Yeah. Let me do that. Well, so different crafts. What's it? I'm not quite sure what the question is
So,
around the
okay, so I remember hearing you say,
Can you be great at two things?
yeah, can you work on and really pour into different kinds of crafts? And I'll use two different things, like let's say music and comedy as an example. You
Yeah.
want to get
The
really,
answer,
really good.
let me shortcut my answer. My answer
Yeah.
is 1,000%. Of course you
Okay.
can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I just watched Whiplash. So we're talking about this one day after I rewatched Whiplash.
What's
You just
Whiplash? Did I know what that is?
Whiplash is a movie about the drummer in drum school, and his teacher is is iconically Iconically, the teacher who is relentlessly, abusively pushing for the student to be great.
Mm.
And so the film is begging a question which it does not answer, which is, should any limits of pressure be put on the production, on bringing about greatness, or does true rare genius greatness require an unbelievable amount of pressure? So in if we're talking about the category that movie is talking about, which is someone who truly has set their sights on being the world's greatest,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the bird of jazz, then I would probably say you should probably just
Focus on that.
crumb,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But the room to move below that category, successfully, and be truly outstanding at what you do. Yes, I've seen countless, too numerous to name examples of people who become double threats by working on all crafts at the same time, triple threats.
Hmm. That's pretty cool. Do you have an example of someone like that people know, like a little more famous? Well, I guess that there's a lot of those. There's like J Lo is a triple threat probably, and I'm
Yeah,
sure
probably
there's
most performers. I mean,
yeah.
you take,
They started in
let's look
one.
Keanu Reeves, right?
Yeah,
Like I haven't really seen. Oh, Jeff Bridges is a better example.
yeah,
Jeff Bridges is a great actor, but he's
and
a
a singer,
great
right?
musician.
Singer
He's a
songwriter.
great
Yeah,
musician.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
And then these guys turn around, and I honestly believe that Matthew McConaughey wrote his own book. I really believe that those are 90% his words
Yeah.
with an editor's touch. I might be wrong, but I don't think so.
He
So
lives in
so I think,
Austin where I do, so of course he did it.
ask him, please, like ask him.
Yeah, I'll
Like,
go knock on his door.
so, there's a guy that's a wildly great storyteller in writing, but also a
Yeah,
wildly great actor.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. What about
Because the,
that?
li- the limiter that we're talking about is only like, well, would you have time to develop two crafts well in a 40-hour week? Or so your
Oops.
choices: are you going to devote 40 hours to one week, 40 hours to one craft, or are you going to dive to do 10 hours to this craft, 10 hours to this craft, 10 hours to this craft, and over time I'm going to get great at three
Well,
crafts?
it's interesting you say that. I'll tell you why. So everyone's different. Everyone's wired up differently. I know for me, like if I stay too long in music without doing something fun and kind of comedic, my soul's kind of getting pissed off. And if I stay too much in the crazy fun comedic stuff and don't do music or spoken word poetry, my soul equally gets pissed off. Not that my soul really gets
Boom,
pissed off, but it's like for
boom.
me, I have to do. It's like if I don't, it's like all of me. That's part of me, and I didn't even know that I was a spoken word guy until yeah, COVID hit. Basically, that was when I started. I think I wrote like 40 or 50 spoken word poems in a few months, and it was a new outlet for me. And I was like, wow! And it was so much more than songwriting because you're limited in the songwriting with lyrics; they're pretty short. But the spoken word poem is like you can just go off and you could just like say everything you're feeling and all the rhymes and the rhythms and all the cool things and the voice going up and down. But what I've noticed is, and that's why I've coined creating out loud, is it's like you said, it's like it's giving yourself permission to play and have fun and to not put all the pressure that you've got to be perfect. Like I can sit there. I had, one of the guests on our show is Sekou Andrews, who I shared with you before we hit record today, and he's like, in my opinion, he's one of the best spoken word artists probably on the planet. And his presence and his power, and these guys, they go out on stage and they know how to like move every piece of the thing they're doing and talking about, and they're owning the stage, and their presence and their cadence is up and down, and they have like hundreds of poems memorized, and like performers that have been mastering that craft for years and years and years. And I look at that and I'm like, I wrote my first one. I'm holding up my thing, my pad, and I'm performing that on camera while I'm reading it. And I'm like, oh, that's a better word. That's a better word. That's a better word. But what's the alternative? To wait and wait and wait and never share it? And that was one of the things I was going to ask you. When are we ready to put ourselves out there with our craft, polished versus raw? And I know there's different calibers of people. Some people that are super professional, like Usher probably won't share behind the scenes necessarily and do something real raw. And like, hey, I'm writing this song. Let me share the first couple of sentences with you. He might not do that, but I think there's so much benefit for a lot of us that we're waiting, like you were doing 8 years with your play, right? Your show. Like there's benefit in putting it out and sharing it with people and going for it. What's your thoughts on that?
There's benefit in putting it out in raw form. That there's great benefit, and actually, I Usher aside, because I don't know anything about Usher. I
Yeah.
know that John Leguizamo does his stuff in raw form. I've went and watched him do it in raw form.
Oh,
I know it's
really?
essential. But what's interesting is he just guys like that. It's better you just step it up. So if you're going to bring out a raw form, then what you're probably looking for is a small audience, right? If you're
Yeah.
and then the small lines, when it's less raw, then you go, oh, I'm ready to present it to a larger audience, and then you say, oh, good. Now, well, this is developing pretty nicely. I think I'm ready to put this on for a significant audience. And this show's really polished. I think I'm ready to call in the big audience, the big show. So I think really that's a creative project process. And we watch all stand-up comedians who are legends
Yeah,
do the same
stand-ups
thing.
definitely do that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. They
Yeah. You
workshop
just,
it. They workshop it.
yeah, you don't get great shit working on it in your bedroom.
I know the thing that drives me a little crazy, and this again is kind of that impatience piece with me personally, is like I get something out and I'm like, it's raw. I got it out. It's kind of halfway and done in the computer or the song or the journal. And I'm like, but then I'm on to the next things coming through. And I'm like, I don't always take all those things and finish them. If it's something I want to do or I'm called to do, I'll do it. But that's something I think that's the next level for me is like sticking with the one that really speaks to me. Because some of them are gonna just open up a door, you get it out, and you're like, not really feeling the vibe. Like you said, like that one where you become obsessed about it, where you're like, I want to finish this. I want to put this out. This goes on the album or this goes on the stage.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't agree. You articulate what I experience so perfectly. Is I'm exactly the same. It is I could put something out in raw form, and then my experience with the audience isn't because it's in raw form. It's because something inside me goes, yeah, I that's enough with that piece. I just don't feel that piece has the kind of legs or sheer internal exhilaration that I'm looking for to go further with that.
Yeah, I get that.
But I'm always shooting for it. The reason I'm bringing out to raw form is that during or after the performance, I might go, oh my God, I can't wait to develop that to the fullest because that has legs. But I think it's a little bit of a mystery as to
It's
what
it's
does and what
a it's
doesn't.
an internal artist knowing. It's an energy thing. It's a like because I know like all the big artists, all the big songwriters, like I know John Mayer, Ed Sheeran, all these people. You hear them, and they're like, hey, I wrote like 30, 35, 40 songs, and we got the top 10 or 12 on the album. So it's like the other songs didn't make it because something was missing. Obviously, their spark, their joy, their maybe they couldn't make it sound the way they wanted to. Who knows? But I think there's power in that, and I think it just comes down to that. And I'm so passionate about that right now in my own life, and encouraging other people too. And I know you are with the Bliss the same way. Is like just start creating. And I know when
I
I
had
was
a,
when I was working with you guys, you were pushing me, and I remember it was like, and I started, and I stopped. I started and I stopped because I was like, I was getting an adjustment. I was like, the and interestingly enough, that version of the show didn't feel like this one does. I think it's because I've upped my skills, I've upped my production, I've upped my the gear, even all that stuff. But the content's getting better because I've grown as a person, and I realize also there's that part of me that knows that we're going to be bringing the entertainment side of it. It's not just going to be talks, and that's the bigger joy for me. And I remember fighting that with you guys. I'm like, I don't want to just be a talk show host. I'm an artist. It's like I'm an entertainer. Like I'm not just a talk show guy, like putting everybody else in the limelight. Like I want to be on the stage performing and doing all that stuff too. I just happen to love building relationships and having
with
great
other artists and
people.
creatives and stuff,
Yeah,
right?
so I love it all. And I love the deep conversation. I love the fun. I love making the music. I love collaborating. Like let's both play music together on the show. Let's both do a sketch. Like That to me is like the whole thing. And just freaking create out loud, man.
I love it. Well, let me go back to what you said. The iteration between your first the first versions of this show
Yep.
and this one, to me, I don't know what got you from that iteration to that. I don't what lightning bolt got you to dress it up in this manner. To me, that's the quantum leap in your art, in the artist in you saying, I believe in this so much that I'm going to go out and put it in an extraordinary package. I'm going to invest in how much I believe in this. This has to be polished. And that's a holy grail in an artist's journey, is to find an idea you love, you're so deeply in love with and so aligned with, that you say, I will invest all time, energy, and money required to realize the vision I have in my head. What happened?
Yeah, I'll tell you what happened was I'm doing, well, I'm not going to say this on the show because it's like, everything's going to be different timing. So I don't want to put anything out on that. But I think what it is like, I decided that I wanted to do I wanted to just get a bunch of conversations and a bunch of interviews in the can with people that I love, people that I really respect, people that I see. And I just see everyone else out there doing Zoom. And I'm just like, ugh. No offense to Zoom. Zoom has been great. Like I loved it all during COVID. I use it all the time. But for a creative expression, it's pretty lame. It's pretty lame. And it's like, it's basically just two talking heads and, having this new setup to be able to go to like, hey, there's Patrick drinking out of his cup. And it's like, hey, I'm here going, look, my hair's sticking out. What happened there? And then we're back. Like that's all happening in real time. Like it's like a real TV show with a real producer, real directors. And so I think I sat there and you'll love this part of it. I remember sitting there going, I am putting myself through so much pressure, so much extra work, so much extra stress, because I was doing it in a short time frame too. But I'm like, I could make this so easy. Like I hopped on a call with one of my friends on Zoom and I was like, oh my God, you just turn it on and you're there. It's there. You're just like, there's not. And I'm like, but there was something in me that said, I want to make this beautiful. I want to make this beautiful. And I did all the graphics myself. I found the background. Like I just put it all together. I just literally like put my creative soul was just coming out. And I was like, and this is only one version of it. Like there's a whole live version coming. There's a stage version of this coming. There's a Netflix version coming of this. Like I see it and I feel it and I know that it's great timing for it. So I'm just all in. I'm all in. It's a very different level. And the only thing holding me back is my own craft, my own artistry to keep putting it out. But I think that's part of my story, is sharing it online and saying, hey, I'm creating out loud. This is what I'm telling you to do. And I'm going to go through different iterations and I'm going to suck hair and I'm going to learn to be great hair. And it's just part of the ride. And I think being real and raw and creating out loud and being vulnerable and doing that, to me, it connects with people a lot more than like, someone that's at the top of their game and you didn't get to see any of it except the top. It's just a different story.
And what do you find yourself trying to reveal? Does it change every conversation, or do you find yourself kind of coming back to this core conversation that you're having, through this?
That's a really good question. Hey, who's interviewing here around?
Well, I've become deeply curious because the theme that's showing up for us the most, and I'm wondering, is it?
Yeah.
And it's such a reflection of you,
Yeah.
but it's also deeply a reflection of me, right? We have this deeply in common. Is the artist process?
Yeah.
Is the process of creating, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's what's coming up.
Yeah, it's different. It's different.
Journey.
I think there's different pieces that are pretty common ground for everyone I talk to, because the show has values. The show has certain values, right? The values are higher consciousness, self-expression, creativity, living your truth, owning your voice, like all those kinds of things, because that's my journey. And I think that's what so many people are struggling with. And I want to be the light for that. So, and I just have this soft spot for artists and creators. And then the other side, I've got people that are like mega New York Times bestselling authors that are sharing their teachings and their wisdom. Neil Donald Walsh, Sonia Choquette, like those kind of people. And so every conversation is a little bit different. When I have an artist on, it's different to the point because I'm like, I want to hear the process. Like, what's the thinking process? What's the mindset? And when it's a higher consciousness conversation, it's like, okay, what's that? And then when it's an entrepreneur, okay, what's the wisdom? What's the success mindset? How do you think? Like, how do you?
You shift it, yeah. So it's who in front of me? What are they?
Yeah.
What are they
But there's
largely
always
about?
something around, like, hey, what would you tell people who have this dream or have this passion or want to use their voice or want to play bigger in the world and get out of their own way, like those kinds of things. So that's me. Like that's who I am. And so I think that's part of this show. And I do my best to, try and dig into other people's journeys and nuggets and stuff and see what else is there that I, can be totally surprised by. I don't come with a big, huge list of questions. It's an
Of
improv
course
show
not.
for me. It's an
Right, of
improv show.
course, right,
I'll have a few talking points in case
right.
I panic. That's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for asking, actually. That was the first time anyone on the show has actually asked me that.
I have something I want to share,
Yeah,
talk
please.
about,
Please.
discuss, and it comes up on this point. Well, it's in case somebody watching relates to the part of the journey, one of my journeys that's very consistent and real for me, and it's this storytelling journey that I've been on for a long time. I'd like to share my process for storytelling,
I'd
a
love to
little
hear
bit,
it.
an insight into my process for storytelling. Now, I think this would apply to someone if they were perhaps a speaker, but more, because speakers use stories, but I think more directly this would apply to the strange ones who might watch that go, I sometimes just want to tell stories from my life. And here's what I would like. Here's what I would share as a guy who decided I wanted to share stories from my life when I was about 22 years old. And I really started actively taking that up at about 26 years old. And so for 30 years now, I have just consistently said, I'm going to write a story from my life, see how I can do. The window into my life this week, I think, is the most revealing. If you were to try to say, what's the process? Because I think it's weird. I think it's strange, weird, and unusual behavior. The first thing that happens in the storyteller, if you're of this strange ilk, I think, is that something in your brain might tell you a lie, or it might tell you something that may entirely not be true. It might say, "Oh, I think that could be a good story." Does that make sense, Scott? Like that in and of itself, I think is an act of
Yeah,
sort of
it's a
it's a
hit.
bold
It's a
or
hit.
well, I think it's either bold or crazy. I think it borders on bold or crazy.
That's a
Right?
great
But I think you
combo.
have to
Great
have
combo.
but I think there's this some kind of self permission, right, that comes with artists to be so bold as to crazy as to say, "Oh, I think that might be a good story," and then to
Yeah.
run with that idea. The second part of the act that really amazes and surprises me is that I is that is that I then sit down during a week where I have an unending to-do list of necessary responsibilities, right? Things that truly need to be given attention and taken care of, and clients to serve, and money to make, and schedules to keep. And in the middle of all that, I clear my schedule and I sit down and I start writing something that might be a good story for no good reason. And I think that's the second most important thing. Is there any really good reason for me to take away from everything that calls for action and responsibility and potential financial payoff and just put it aside and say, but today, the most important thing is that I find out if this is a good story. And then I sit in my writing space and I write this week, and I write for 7.5 hours.
Whoa. Wait, 7.5 hours in one sitting, like a full day?
Yeah.
Wow.
I write for 7.5 hours during the middle of a busy week
Wow.
to find out if it's a good story. Now,
Damn.
usually halfway through the story writing, I will intuitively, and this is by training now, know, oh, this is a very good story. I will have a measure, or this is a great story, or this story is not as good as I thought it might be.
Yeah, yeah.
The writing begins to reveal that. Does
Sure.
that make sense?
Sure. Sure.
So, in the last 2 weeks, I've had two experiences, and I think they're really informative on that.
Yeah.
This week, yesterday, when I was writing 7 hours, the more I wrote, the more I said, this is a very good story. And then when I was done, I posted it to Facebook. And the response from my audience is, I was right. It's a very good story. Last week, when I was writing a story that would take me, that I was on the third iteration of over the course of 3 weeks, and it was 3 times as long. It was a mountainously long story. Halfway through that mountainously long story, the voice in my head said, this story, because it's so long, is only going to be received by a few. Most of your reading audience will not be able to hang with the length of this story. But I did not violate how long the story wanted to be. I just trudged on in a story that I wished wasn't so long.
Yeah.
And I finished the story and I published it to very, very little fanfare because it was so long.
Yeah.
And in both cases, I wrote those stories. I took exorbitant amounts of my time to write two stories that have zero financial payoff. And I've been repeating this pattern in my life for 30 years. I think that's part of the artist process.
Is that just because you have to write and you have to tell stories? And if you
Yeah.
don't, you'll just bust?
It's because because I have
You have to.
learned that I feel better when I write stories, and that one of my pleasures in life is thinking, I think I'm becoming a little bit better at this. I think I'm getting better at this. And then of course I love the occasions when someone reads my story and they love it, because I'm having two performances and I am ultimately a performer. When I write the story, I am performing it. That's all my writing is the oral performance captured with my fingers as I imagine myself on a stage telling the story.
Yeah, I love that. I was going to ask you
This,
about that because it's like you got the writing and the performing. I was like, is there one that lights you up, or is it four to perform? But it sounds like they're both performing. One's before stage and one's after.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think that I think I wanted to bring that up to see if you relate, and to tell you that I think the artist journey is largely behind the scenes, is so private like that.
Yeah.
It's private, and it can't be about the financial rewards. I don't think that mastery of something, of which I don't have mastery. I'm pursuing mastery in storytelling,
Pretty
and
good at it, man.
I've made some good gains. Yeah, some really good gains. But I would just like someone out there who's thinking, I want to be able to tell great stories, to know, like, oh well, it's kind of what it looks like, and it's worth it. It's you know, but
Yeah.
but I wanted to throw in my experience of,
I
I'm not thinking
that's
about money, and I'm clearing my schedule to make use for time for my soul and my creative act. For what reason? I want to entertain people with stories,
yeah. Isn't there
and I do it all
also?
the time. I entertain people with stories all the time,
I know you do.
right?
But
I'm winning.
isn't there
I'm
also
winning.
a well, yeah, because you're winning because you're doing what your soul's wired up to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 I have the exuberance in my life of making people of telling people good stories now and then.
Yeah. Now and then. Is there any difference between like self-expression and performing stories? Like, are they the same to you, or is that another compartment of your soul?
Yeah, they're really different.
Okay, could you iterate on that a bit?
Self-expression is authentic to me. It's authentic communication, right?
Mhm.
It's me being a human and saying, hey, well, let me, oh, self-expression, you might mean be self-expressed. What do you mean?
What do I mean?
Self-expression. I just realized, like, I might not know what you mean by
Is
self-expression.
that a rhetorical question or a real question? It's a real
It's a real
question.
question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think when I think of I feel like it kind of fits in with being a creative and being a creator. It could be I don't want to say as small, but it could be as simple as being able to speak your truth, right? And it could also be as bold and as big as like I'm going to do a one person show in front of 50,000 people. So to me, it's like self expression is like I'm going to do everything I can in my life to express my soul's voice, my soul's gifts, my soul's talents, whether it's art or whether it's some other version. Maybe it's entrepreneurship. But again, because we're two brother artists here, I'm staying in that realm a little bit more because that's where I get the most lit up. But that's what I mean by self expression. It's kind of like the
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
encompassing.
So one contains the other, right? One contains
Yeah.
the other.
Yeah.
I am when I tell a story, I am more fully self-expressed. Yeah, when I tell a story, I'm more fully self-expressed.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you're expressing your
But
soul story, basically.
yeah,
So.
but storytelling in and of itself is a different craft. It's a craft.
No, I get that. I
Self-expression
get that.
is a way of being, right?
Yeah.
Is self-expression. Maybe self-expression is an accomplishment that you have to keep renewing.
Yeah.
You have to attain and then keep renewing. But storytelling is a craft.
Yeah, no, that's a good distinction too. I feel like we're doing a Joe Rogan show right now. It's like a really conscious Joe Rogan show. It's like we've come up with like three or four different like ways of seeing things that both of us are getting these big ahas. The difference
Yeah,
between craft and self-expression. That's another little gateway. Um,
I
yeah,
love craft.
I know you do. I know you do. That's something that I get to wrap my head around because
Yeah,
sometimes
because
I get bored. I just want to keep going. I just want to keep going.
I think in performance there are two available treasures. One is craft, and that's private. You get that treasure privately as long as you do the work
Hmm.
behind the scenes, and that's where I source most of my fulfillment. And then the second is those rare days out when you get to perform is the second bonus. But boy, if you haven't been working your craft, those days aren't really necessarily great treasures.
Yeah. It's funny. That's an area where you and I have some difference, meaning you've got a lot more experience on the stage. I literally can probably count on one or two hands how many stages I've been on, and most of them have
Oh,
been with other people, like improv.
oh, oh.
Online, on camera, been on hundreds or thousands of stages and been in front of people like talking, doing poetry, empowering, speaking, like that kind of stuff. But I don't have a lot of stage experience other than,
Oh,
and
you
that's,
got to get some.
oh my God,
You're
it's,
going.
it's such a calling. It's such a calling. And it's like, it's been such a fear. It's like year, 8 years. I think mine's like maybe 24, 25 years, maybe my whole life. I don't know. But I feel like, and that's the thing, like, I'm like, like I know that I'm meant to be on stage. And it's not an ego thing. It's like my soul's like, put
No,
my
no.
ass on stage. It's like I got something to give. And I see these shows, and that's why it's interesting because I'm like, I'm doing this show. So, because I was thinking originally of doing more like a one person show myself, like we talked about, like a one person variety show, if you will. But then I was like, I could literally do something like this and probably be a little more fulfilling for me to do it with other people too. So it's not just me doing a solo show necessarily. Because I don't think it's that as much as it is like do some stuff solo on stage, but also play with other people because that's my highest joy.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's great self-awareness
Yeah.
entirely.
Yeah. So I think instead of doing a one person show, even though I've got a great idea that's like so mind blowingly awesome and deep and funny, that it gets to be done at some point in some version. But I think right now, since I'm in this container, maybe taking this to a live audience could be a really cool thing to do, you know?
Yeah.
And putting my own performance skills on there and open up with, a monologue, a story, a song, a poem, and like kind of split it up like that, and then bring on all these super cool people to have conversations like this, and then also,
Bring me to tell a story.
yeah, story. That's what I'm saying. It's like I have so many friends that have all these different gifts: storytellers, comedians, singer-songwriters, spoken word poets, dancers. I'm like, the world needs this. The world needs this. And I have a friend I'm talking to that's like, she's got this huge vision too, like this mega, like big show version of stuff. And I'm like, we should connect. We should like, there's definitely, because she's got a certain skill, I got a certain skill, and she's super powerful and she's on fire. So I'm like, there's something gonna brew with all this stuff.
Nice.
Yeah, man.
Nice.
Here's a quick little question. I know we're getting been a long conversation, but it's been dope. I literally haven't even, it's like I'm looking and going, wow, I can't even imagine it's been that long, but it's been
I haven't checked the time,
I
so
literally just looked by
I
accident
don't
just
want to
now.
know.
Yeah.
I don't want to know, but I'm having a good time.
It's awesome. No, it's like because we're totally present. Because there's other things I know I want to talk about with you, like like what's your definition of purpose is in life, and also like you've been on these journeys. Like one thing I love about you also is like your mix of excellence and your commitment to craft and your commitment to things like Course in Miracles and Eckhart Tolle and like and being so present and being so grounded in your spirit. Like there's a lot of things that I know we can unpack with that as well. So if you want to go there for a little bit, I'm cool with that.
Oh gosh, let's do it.
Yeah, because we haven't really
Okay.
we haven't really gotten
So
into the conscious realm as much. You know what I mean? So
yeah, yeah, the conscious realm.
just like the journey of like how you take care of your soul and your connection to
Yeah,
God
yeah.
and
So
sources.
I like the way your setup happens to work really well because the first thing you asked was what's my definition of purpose, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
um, my friend and business partner and I, Eric, who you know, Eric
Hmm.
Lochtefeld,
Hmm.
we wrote a book called Purpose Code. Purpose Code, somewhere here.
Yeah.
Um, and so that really was our attempt to flesh out to say, hey, this is how you get in alignment with both your purpose and your bliss, like get in alignment with those two things. Well, after Purpose Code, I came to this articulation that I really like about purpose. And it is truly the way I live and have learned to live. And I think that we're all universally suited to live this way in regards to purpose. That we all have two purposes: our outer purpose and our inner purpose. Our outer purpose, I would in short say, is what we said earlier, Scott, is I think it's where your a gift that you sort of have by grace matches your joy. It's where something you are inclined to joyfully do that it turns out you can do really well with a little practice is your purpose.
Mm.
You're at your outer purpose. And that for some reason, the entire universe wants you to live that purpose as if like, hey, that's the role I wrote for you in the play. And
Yes,
if
the
you live
script.
that purpose, if
Yeah.
you live out that purpose in the script, all this other stuff happens that's depending on you doing that. The other way I like to put it is it's the cell in the body that says that with a knowing, it's like, I know that we're all identical in this body, but I am supposed to be in the liver. I just know I'm supposed to be in the liver.
Yeah.
And that the cell that doesn't know where it's supposed to be becomes cancerous,
Mm.
right? Now, I'm sure the universe has a plan for all cells, right? That it's not really a wrong move, but to be in alignment with your outer purpose is, I think, to know like, this is the intersection of what I joyfully desire to do. And it turns out I can do with a little bit of practice. So in Bliss Champions, we know how difficult that question is for people. And so we have enormous procedures and processes in
Right.
order to help people arrive, because everybody can arrive at that knowingness. The second purpose, though, is our inner purpose. And I believe that to be universal. And our inner purpose is simply to awaken to who we truly are spiritually, beyond our personality and our ego.
That's beautiful. That's I feel like that is the number one divine purpose for sure.
Wake
And
up
yeah, it's
spiritually.
like get out of your head and out of your personality and your ego thinking that's who you are.
Yeah.
And once you do that, then there's this whole other personal universe opens up to you, and where all the gold is and all the nuggets and all the things. And I think that feeds the outer purpose. Maybe it goes both ways. I mean, there's a million roads to Rome, as they say, right? Or all roads lead to Rome. And that is a powerful one. And I'm a big fan of that. I mean, that's how I started this journey myself. It all started with the awakening and going in. And then all the remembrance comes back. You're like, ah, oh, I remember I love this. Oh, I remember this gives me joy. Oh, this doesn't feel good, because you're becoming connected and you know what it feels like to have that source energy running through your body. Meditation, journaling, storytelling, music, like all the things.
So to me, that's outer purpose stuff,
Yeah.
not meditation. But to me, um, my speaking, my writing, my comedy, all that stuff, it's all outer purpose stuff.
Yeah.
The inner purpose stuff to me, my life became entirely, completely brand new and wildly better from the inside out when I connected with Eckhart Tolle's material.
I remember.
At a time in my life when I dramatically I was the very typical um, cliche, but because it's true that when we finally hit some kind of rock bottom in ourselves, this is like a universal human map. When we finally, our way breaks us down so completely that for the first time in our life, we think, man, there must be a better way. I'm open to a better way.
Totally.
Then some kind of cosmic help pours in, and that is the birth of your best life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when that poured in, it poured into me in the form of the wisdom teacher, or my presence practice teacher, Eckhart Tolle's material. And I soul melded with every word in Power of Now, and made it my, and I reprioritized my life at about 43 or 40. Let's see, it was about 9 years ago. In my mid 40s, I reprioritized my life. And for the first time ever, I said, above all else
Yeah.
is my spiritual practice, that
Yes.
which connects me to what I now know is true, that inside I am peace, love, joy, and a channel for wisdom.
Mm.
Meaning I can tune to a wisdom dial where I can hear wisdom, right? And so when that was finally prioritized above all else, my life got better, because it was so real. So real was a priority that every day I paid attention to it and said, what's the most important thing I'm going to do today? And every day the answer was use the practice of presence to come back to the peace, love, and joy with
Yeah.
no condition or reason that I keep finding in myself.
Yeah. Yeah. The first time, thanks for sharing that, by the way. I remember the first time that I understood that you can tap into your joy no matter what's going on in your life was a massive breakthrough, and something that I live by every day is finding the joy, because it's there. It's right there. It's right in your heart. And it's like you said, like, for me, there is not a day in the last 25 or 30 years that I start the morning without doing Wim Hof breathing. Well, I just started that a year ago, but and then meditating for like 30 minutes to an hour, and just sitting there and connecting to source, connecting to my soul, connecting to spirit, listening, loving, inviting all the beautiful things of this world through the spirit. And that's when you start to know that you're not the body, and you can start to actually feel and see things, right? You're like, these limbs, they're just like loosey little limby things God bless them. They're amazing. I can use them and play piano and take the stage and walk. But you look at your body and you're just kind of like, it's just this thing. It's a thing. And this personality. Like I love doing the little chant or incants of, I think this is very, very Eastern driven, like just meditating and like, I am not the body. I am not the mind. I am not even the character named Scott. I am infinite spirit. I am eternal. I am immortal. And like just tapping into that energy and letting go of all the other stuff is tremendous. And I'll tell you what's been a huge help recently is having a little 528 hertz music going on. I don't know if you're into the sound healing stuff, but I've been doing a lot of research. There was a book that I read, audiobook, by this guy named Major, Maejor. He was like a really successful rapper. He got leukemia and he healed himself through sound healing. And he's got this really cool book that goes through all the different scales and all the different solfeggios. And like, 432 is the vibration of source. 528 literally completely reprograms and heals your DNA. And like when I meditate to that, my third eye is wide open. I'm seeing all different levels of dimensions, and my body is gone.
Wow.
And that starts my day. Like even if I have any anxiety or stress, it literally just goes away. The whole channel opens up. The whole breathing channel opens up. So I'm a big fan of 528. If you look that up, 528
Yeah,
hertz
I'm
HZ.
gonna. That sounds cool.
Yeah, it's cool. So anyway, I don't know where that came from. I think that was just channeled
Yeah,
for the world to listen to because it's very
yeah,
healing, very healing.
yeah, cool.
Yeah,
Well, I concur. For me, it's not a mantra that gets me there. It's any number of different sets of doors. Right, there's so many doorways into presence.
yeah,
Right. But
yeah,
what I like to when we have the conversation, what was a real breakthrough one day for me was I was beginning to share my presence practice through short videos that I would make for social media, and little bite-sized chunks. And the first one I made taught me something because I asked myself the question, well, I'm about to teach presence, but I don't think that most people know what being unpresent is. So let me start with articulating what being unpresent is. Because if we recognize when we're unpresent, then we might desire to be different.
yeah, yeah,
And so before maybe we go even further into being present, be here now, all that. How about this? How about a few words about what is unpresent? And
yeah,
I like to use this for example. Being unpresent would mean that you're not present to where you are, that you are somehow somewhere else. Well, how can you somehow be somewhere else than where you are? And maybe the answer is starting to get more obvious, right, Scott?
yeah,
The way we spend actually greater than 50% of our life, as measured by a scientist at a university. I'm not going to grab the magazine, but it's right over there in Mindfulness Magazine.
yeah,
Measured in a lab at a university recently, we spend the better part of 50% of our life not where we are. And the way that we do that is we will be somewhere, but we don't really know we're there because over our perception is a hallucination or a daydream. The hallucination might be we're hallucinating about a future. It could be what we think is a better future, like tomorrow when we finally get to go to the show, or it could be a nightmarish hallucination about, oh my gosh, when that bill comes due. Or we could have screened over our perception, so we don't really know, not really aware of our surroundings. Instead, our mind could be dragging us through a hallucination of a regret in the past or an argument that we had yesterday that we're still rehashing in our minds, only this time we're definitely winning. Which is always the
of
case.
course, always
And
right.
then there's a third one, and it is the daydream. And the daydream isn't really
Yeah.
placed in past or future. It's just, you're
Right.
just
Spacing
somewhere.
out, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in all three cases, perceptually, you are in your mind's eye, not the good one, not the third one. You are in your mind's eye in a hallucination that your brain is serving up. And that's why you can drive home some days, but not be aware of what happened between work and home. That's why you can be doing a household chore like the dishes and just suddenly be like, oh, I don't even remember washing those pans because you weren't present. You were in a hallucination.
That's so true too. Have you ever
So,
gotten a cut, and you like don't even remember where you got it?
yeah.
Like all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, when did that happen? Like if you're present, you're not gonna miss you sliced your finger, or you got a splinter or something. But it's like I've had that happen a couple of times, which isn't a great sign.
Yeah, so right. So where were we, right?
Right,
And
right.
so one of the great presence practice precepts or things to think about would be, is it better to spend more time in your real life?
Mm.
What would the benefits be of spending far more time in your real life than in an imaginary one, than in hallucinations? And so I dove into that question knowing fully well, like, oh yeah, we do live most of our life not present to our real life. And so in my own personal steps and in my experience, I learned what was astounding to me, that every aspect of my life, of our lives, get better if we just spend more time in our real life. That's pretty wild. So imagine your life far more miraculous just because you decided to hallucinate less.
Mm. That is,
It turns out it turns out that reality is far friendlier and more miraculous than hallucinations.
yeah, that would seem to be true.
Course in Miracles goes so far as to teach you that it refers to the present moment as the holy instant, and its teachings continually state that the present moment is the moment where miracles occur.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. It's experience. I remember.
So I don't want to miss the miracles.
No, I don't blame
And I don't
you.
want to miss my real life.
Right. No, that's that's kind of a mic dropper right there, to be honest. That's a spiritual mic dropper. I'm looking over on the side. I know it's like that looks weird on camera now because I'm looking over down at him and it's like I see his awesome face. It's I had so many experiences where I'll be out walking and I'll see something so freaking amazing in nature, whether it's like the flock of birds or the song of a bird or um, seeing the little baby smile at me or something that's sitting in just anything like that, right? And I've even seen things like that look almost a little magical, if you will. And I'm just like going, wow. Look at that
Real
rain.
life.
Look at that rainbow. Look at that. Listen to the rustle. Look at those wildflowers. Like Texas in spring, we had these wildflowers. I was like mesmerized. I'm like, look at that. And and then someone will walk up with their dog and they'll take a poo on the wildflower. Don't even look at them. Don't even look at the wildflowers. And, there could be like 5 huge hawks sitting there floating in mid sky and no one sees it. And I'm like, what's up with that? I find that fascinating. And that's the presence thing you're talking about. But when you see it, there's magic.
And then yeah, and beautiful, right? Because you do notice so much more in nature. And the other place, though, that you start note that you see more love, you
Yeah.
see, is with people,
People.
because it's the same with, if you walk out in nature, you just sort of described me. If you walk out in nature and you've got all these hallucinations running across your perception, then of course you don't see all those beautiful things you described. If the next human being you approach is a significant other to you that you love, but you have a past with them, and it's likely that you're now seeing them through a lens of the past. So you might
Yeah.
look at them and actually think, of the fight that you had last
Mhm.
week, or the thing that they didn't, that you're worried that they might abandon you, and you
Yeah.
might see them a little bit through a filter of, I'm really worried they're going to leave me. And so we rarely, unless we're present, we don't see the real person in front of us. We see the person through a very thick screen of past and present. And so this kind of works on camera, doesn't? Because I would love everybody to, if you, for those who would like to just renew this knowingness, like go to your, the next time you see your significant other or a dear friend or anything, put yourself in a really tight perceptual frame that says, I am only allowed to see them as if this is the only moment in my life I am seeing them. I have never seen them in the past. I will never see them in the future. And look at that person, and you will
Uh,
see the real person.
you'll see right into their soul. Yeah,
Some people re-fall in love when they do
I
that.
know. I know. Yeah, I mean that's life right there. That is what life is really, really for.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna let that sink for a
But
second.
isn't that interesting? Because all you did is say, I want to live more often in my real life. Your
Right,
real life only occurs now. Your real life never occurs in the past. Your real life never occurs in the future.
right.
So all it's saying is, what does my real life like if I live it in a perceptual window of about 3 seconds? Which is how science, which is some laboratory scientists said, well, if there's such thing as a present moment, how long does it last? And the scientists came up with 3 seconds.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's wild. Well, dude, I gotta tell you, I'm gonna I'm bringing you into the wrap up room, and I'm getting some light coming in. See, now my light's getting I'm all angelic and shit.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I feel like that's a mic drop. Like that just we've really covered so many beautiful um, journeys and adventures on this ride, and it's literally been a time warp. Talk about being present, you know. Um, I just
I'm
want
going
to.
to ask, how long have we been talking?
Am I supposed to look? I'm gonna give it away to the people. 2 hours and 21 seconds.
Wow. Welcome to your Joe Rogan show.
I was gonna say it's
But
like
really, it's your Scott Brandon.
it is, but it's Joe Rogan length. It's becoming these like really loving, loving, long, ongoing conversations that just go.
And I prefer it.
Me too.
That's why
I
I
don't
love
like those
Rogan.
short ones. I don't like those
That's why I
short
like
ones.
Rogan. Yeah.
And you know, it's funny. People say like, you know how people have their opinions and their judgments about how to do things. As an example, like you were saying, like, hey, people don't have attention spans for this or this or this, and you'll hear that in this world with the shows, like, oh, no one has an attention span. Keep it at like 15 or 20 minutes. And I'm like, the number one show in the world that has the most listeners and the most highly paid guy, his stuff is 2.5 and 3 hours long. And if, yeah, you might not watch it all in one sitting. Like I used to watch his stuff. I'd be like, I'll watch a half hour tonight with dinner. I'll watch a half hour the next night with dinner. But it's like, if the content's that phenomenal and it's not just a bunch of boring surfacey stuff, that's beautiful right there. Cause you're not only connecting with your guest and your person you're talking to, but you're literally letting people into that world, into two other souls, to two other beings on this planet who are sharing their stories and their journeys and their wisdom and their lessons.
Yeah.
I think it's
I
great.
mean,
I think it's great.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Kevin Costner said it first, and it really, to me, and it
yeah.
stuck in my mind because he was being criticized for making 3 or 3.5 hour
Right.
movies
Right.
long before they were, far before they were commonplace. Like I think Dances
Right.
with the Wolves really stretched people to the limits or something,
Yeah. Yeah.
even
Yeah.
though it won Best Picture. But I remember him saying in response, he goes, "I'm sorry, I don't make movies to fit into your dinner plans.
Ooh.
I make movies to tell a story."
Oh, I love that.
And
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what we're doing. We're not making this show to fit into your dinner plans, people.
right.
We're here to
Hey,
tell
I had
you,
a great time, man.
tell
Thank
you.
you. I
Oh
had an
yeah.
unbelievable time.
Yeah, it's I made a big prayer before this episode. I was like, just use us. Just literally let my higher self connect with your higher self, let our souls connect, let our hearts bond, and whatever wants to come through, whatever God wants to come through, let's just let it out. And
Yeah, beautiful,
it just
Bert.
worked. It worked beautifully. So I want to take a moment and just say thank you for being who you are. And you are such a brother, and you are such a dear friend of mine. Even when we don't see each other for a while, I love you so deeply.
Bert.
You're one of my biggest inspirations. I call you like a friend-tor. You're like a friend-tor to me because you do a lot of things that I love and that I choose to step into and be bigger and bolder at. And you've got your spirit, you've got your consciousness, and you're fun and you're deep, you're successful. You just have all these beautiful things, and you're doing epic work in the world. So I honor you and I acknowledge you, and I send my heart to your heart and say
Man,
thank you for what you do, brother, and for being
man,
in my
that
life,
is
for being in my
so,
life.
that is so received in my heart. Thank you, brother. Thank you
Awesome.
so much. And I
Awesome.
could not be prouder of you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah. So here's a couple things. One is, where do we find you? What's the best place for people to connect with you?
Well, Facebook,
Okay.
my personal account at Facebook,
Okay.
and Instagram. I'm most active. If it's a story I'm telling, then it goes on Facebook. If it's if they're short video clips I like to make,
Yeah.
then it goes on
It goes on
Instagram.
the Insta. You're always in my feed, man. You're like spitting those wisdom bombs in my Instagram feed all over the place.
Once in a while, on and off. Yeah.
Looking like the star that you are. Awesome. And then one last question for the crowd is, what is your best advice for people that want to free themselves to be themselves and really step into that authentic expression that we've been talking about today?
Boy, this is the deepest question you could have asked me, because this I have a lot of data on. This is the heart of my work at my company, Bliss Champions, for the last 5 years. So forgive me for taking a pause, okay?
Please, please.
Because this one, boy, I care about, and I know it's not easy. I've really
I
learned it's
know.
not easy for people.
Yeah.
So to really step into who you want to be,
Yeah, like your real self.
yeah, yeah. Ask for your higher power's help for sure. Like, just, you know, go to whatever is what you consider to be your needs, you know, which just means, I really want this. I
Yeah.
really want help on this. I really, truly, this is my soul's desire. I want to align my will with what the universe's will is for me. And then for me, what I would add to that soulful, desire-ish prayer intent is I always add, and I tell you what, I am willing, and I will work, and if I'm so lucky as to know, I will take the chances that are required. I promise I
Mm,
will. And then so that to me is really important, is you got to call it in. This universe, the first thing it always checks is your will sufficiently aligned with what you
yeah.
say you want? And if it's not, then you don't receive it yet, because the number one rule is this universe lovingly will not violate your will. And
Oof.
so if your will is at 49%, I want this, and 51%, I'm really kind of still really deeply afraid of it. And
Yeah.
it's subconsciously easier to not have it than it is to have it. Then the universe will patiently and lovingly wait until till your will's alignment goes to 51%. At
Mm.
51%, providence will move if you have asked in earnest for the question, and you have
Uh,
promised you will respect the answer.
so it's not 100% all in, like it's the 51, just getting enough over critical mass that you're
It's
more,
okay to say, I am terrified, but
yeah.
greater than my terror and my fear, and and my limited thinking about myself, is my heartfelt soulful desire to live what I was here to do.
Mm. Yeah, it's perfect. It's perfect. Thank you.
Now, that's the most important thing. But boy, oh boy, then then run out. Then run out and respect this chart.
Yeah, get your courage on. Get your beliefs up.
Both. Yeah,
Beliefs and
get your
courage.
beliefs up and get your courage on.
Whew.
And miracles and treasure awaits you. Miracles and treasure beyond your wildest imagination. That's my favorite part of the journey, is we get to dream up all the treasures and go receive them. But the ones we receive in return are
Right, so much
far
bigger.
greater,
Yeah.
far greater
Ah,
than what we were dreaming.
amazing. Amazing. Boy, I received that
And the
one.
greatest treasure of all, no matter how many times you go around the world, no matter how many people you fall in love with or that fall in love with you, no matter how much money you make, no matter how much ink you garner, the greatest treasure of all, I'm absolutely positive, will be the tremendously loving feeling you have about yourself and everyone around you.
Ah, that is it. That is it. That's beautiful, man. That is just, that is a nugget. That is gold. And I hope everyone watching this plays that over and over and over again, along with the whole 2.5 hour episode, because this thing was badass. All right, brother. I appreciate you for being on.
Appreciate you.
You're a true star. You're a beautiful human being, and I'll see you in just a tiny bit. I'm gonna get off. I forgot to show this. So it's like, this was actually, Patrick, was this this was the poster for your play. This wasn't the book cover, right?
That is the new book cover. I just
Oh, that's a
revised the
new book
brand.
cover. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
I changed the brand of the show from Man One Bank Zero to Cash Me If You Can.
Awesome, awesome. So if you guys want to check out this incredible story, it was basically he got one of those fake checks in the mail and he put it in the bank and cashed it. And there's a whole story that goes with it, and it is freaking amazing, like unbelievable. And you'll see some other pictures there. There's one of them is he's performing on stage, and the other one was when I was with him in the
You
middle
took
there.
that. Yeah, you
Yeah,
took it.
when you were just kind of looking at your script and looking at the lighting and all that kind of good stuff.
Can
So
I say this real quick?
yeah, please.
I was on the phone with one of my clients yesterday, and he lives in St. Louis. I don't know one single one of his friends, and he goes, "Hey, I got something you might really appreciate. I was in my EO group yesterday," and this guy goes, "I just heard the greatest story I've ever heard in my life on audiobook." And he goes, "Oh, what's it called?" And he goes, "It's called Cash Me If You Can." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that means one person has purchased my audiobook. That's
There you go.
wonderful."
Well done, brother. Well done. All right. Well, maybe we'll have
I
to make
knew
that too.
someone would listen to it someday.
There you go. All right, man. I'm gonna wrap up. I mean, come on. That was amazing. Like, I'm just in awe. I feel like my body's gone. I'm totally in my soul, and my heart's wide open. And I want a smoothie right now because I haven't had one yet. It was supposed to be a couple hours ago. So anyway, I want to send my love to all you beautiful people watching, and hope you soaked up the wisdom here and you put that into your life. And remember that you are loved, you are seen, you matter, and you are worthy. And we'll see you next time. Peace.